It's Friday the 13th in Monroeville, Pennsylvania, but who's going to avoid the bad luck in this interclassification matchup between the McKeesport Tigers and the Gateway Gators? McKeesport 6-1 on the season, Gateway 4-3 on the year. And as we take a look at this football game, Vince, two teams that are on a roll coming into Pete Anamarino Stadium. Yeah,
two teams that have 4-game winning streaks and have almost identical offensive output over those 4 games, averaging over 46 points a game. But I tend to think we'll see a little lower scoring of affair tonight because these two defenses have played incredibly well over the past 4 weeks as well.
One thing you've got to imagine, Vince, as we take a look at this football game is Gateway, especially their returning players from a season ago, have a lot of revenge on their minds.
Absolutely. Last year, a 41-17 decision in McKeesport where the Gators led 10-0 in that game, got off to a great start. But boy, the misdirection of that McKeesport offense, it wasn't that they out-physicaled on the offensive side of the ball. It was by the time, with some of the misdirection, Jaleel Perryman last year, the quarterback from McKeesport, he'd be 20 yards downfield before the Gators even knew what hit them. Had multiple long rushing touchdowns. And then on the other side, fumbles galore and pressure on the quarterback throughout the game. Brad Birch had no time to make any decisions, and the offense was completely shut down after those 10 points early in the contest.
Turnovers galore, pressure on the quarterback, and Brad Birch making mistakes are things we have not seen from the Gateway offense recently.
Yeah, I was thinking about looking through notes for this game and just looking at the stats on the season. Just 2 interceptions for Birch coming into this game. And sure, he missed the 2 games earlier in the season, but has really taken a good care of the ball. Jaquan Reynolds had some fumble issues early in the season, but he has held on to the ball well lately. And the Gators, they have minimized the opportunity for other teams to capitalize off their mistakes. And I think that's why they've won some of these games that have been closer in the second half, because they've minimized their mistakes and in turn been able to generate turnovers and take advantage of other teams' mistakes.
You touched on the Gators and their prowess in the second half. What a difference a year has made for this Gateway Gators club. A team that if they would have faced adversity in the second half a year ago would have hung their heads and had a tough time. This year, a very different story.
Yeah, I'll try to remember off the top of my head, but over their last 3 meaningful games, we're down 17-13 to Franklin Regional. Outscored them 31-7, and from that point on to win the game. Hempfield pulls within 21-28. They score 35 unanswered points to put that one to bed. And then last week, trailing 13-7 at half in the Battle of the Bell against Penn Trafford, they go on to score 24 of the next 31 points. Warriors got a garbage time touchdown, but there was no doubt in that second half who the better team was. And things got a little hairy in the last couple of seconds, but there was really no doubt as to who was going to win that game. And the Gators have really cemented themselves as a second-half team in these big conference games.
Well, this is obviously a non-conference game, a non-classification game, and as we get later into the season, it's got to be difficult for these players to get up for a game like this in general, but this is a different story because of the long-standing rivalry between Gateway and McKeesport.
Yeah, I was just about to say that. Brad Birch was quoted this week in the Post-Gazette as talking about he's known a lot of these guys growing up. There is a lot of familiarity staring across the 2 huddles, across the line of scrimmage. There's some real bragging rights in a game like this, and you know that hopefully lends itself to being a little bit more fun tonight. There are no real major stakes, but there are some bragging rights. People across the WPIAL are going to look at this game as a litmus test for both of these teams, who are both contenders in their own right, their respective classifications. 4A for McKeesport, who's number 2 coming into this contest, and the Gators number 4 and 5A, but are climbing those rankings quickly during this 4-game winning streak.
And a lot of that had to do with the fact that the Gateway Gators were able to clinch at least a share of a conference title and the number 1 seed coming out of the Big East Conference a week ago with that victory.
Yeah, we didn't realize that at the end of the broadcast, but the Gators, with that win, Penn Trafford and Franklin Regional, the only 2 teams that have 1 loss remaining. They have the tiebreaker over both of those teams, with Norwin losing and having 2 losses. That game next week becomes inconsequential for the Gators in that regard. They'll have the chance to get an outright conference championship, but what we do know is they will be the first seed and the Big East champs, and they'll have a home playoff game when we get to that postseason marker.
Well, of course, we've got 48 minutes of football to worry about that before we get to next week's game against the Norwin Knights, and it's the Gateway Gators against the McKeesport Tigers here at Pete Anamarino Stadium, and we thank you for joining us right here on GatewayGatorProductions.com. It's going to be a good one, Vince.
Absolutely. This is going to be fun. 2 really good teams. Fun to have it here at the home confines this year, and again, a litmus test. The Big East a little down this year, and the Gators have made hay where they've needed to. They've won the games that they should have won. Now can they go against a real quality opponent, a team that's going to be difficult, that has beat a fellow Big East team. They defeated Penn Trafford 17-7 earlier this season. Can they go out, take care of business, and just continue to build that resume? Again, this doesn't matter for playoffs in the sense of their own qualification, but you know that when it comes time to seed these teams, they look at these sorts of games and that strength of schedule when it comes to, will the Gators be the 2 seed, 3 seed, 4 seed when all is said and done?
One interesting thing about this game, it's the first time Gateway is going to be matched up athletically toe-to-toe since they played Woodland Hills back in game number 2, I should say, week 1. So McKeesport will kick off to begin this football game. It's Nathan Kendrick as we are underway in Monroeville, PA. And this one will carry to around the 2-yard line where it'll be returned by Terrence Cole. Cole finds a crease, sidesteps a tackle. Across the 25. Out of bounds at around the 31-yard line, so good starting field position after a nice return by Terrence Cole.
Nice job. You'll see certainly Cole able to break some tackles, and he's so shifty. He has great vision. But a good job by his blockers in front. One block on a key in on here. You see Tristan Houston there who lays that block. Watch him not lay the behind-the-back block. Wait for that defender to turn around before sealing that block. Those little heads-up plays, so often we see good returns negated by just sloppy blocking or illegal blocking. Good job by Houston there as an underclassman, being able to be patient and not over-pursue and block in the back.
Birch sending Lewis in motion, left to right, takes the end around. Lewis out across the 30 towards the 35 where he'll be brought down. Tackle on the play by Amp Bruton.
It's not something we've seen the Gators go to often, the jet sweep. They've sent guys in motion throughout a lot of the season, but they don't really tend to pull that rabbit out of the hat. But they've got so many talented skill guys out there on the edge, whether it be Selby, Lewis, Jenkins, Harper. Good to see them get the ball into their hands in that way.
It's going to be Reynolds up the middle, not a lot of room as he gets back to the line of scrimmage and then driven back. Tackle made by Courtney Dunn, 6'3", 260, big up the middle.
Yeah, I mean, once again, this is a McKeesport team that's not allowing all that many points against opponents defensively. They are incredibly taut defensively, and so a lot of that starts inside. As per tradition, McKeesport always has a ton of size up front.
Jenkins, the man in motion from right to left. Birch looking to the near side left. The pass intended for Lewis is too tall, incomplete. Coverage on the play by Richard Bierman.
Yeah, just airmailed that one a little bit, did Birch. Now he'll stay out there for the punt team, but hate to see them go 3 and out and give that momentum of the ball right over to the Tigers. But the Gators have started slow offensively in a few games and then come back.
Punt by Birch, caught it around the 30-yard line. Nice opportunity for a return here by the Tigers. It'll be thwarted by a block in the back down near where the return started. And a spell on the return, but like I said, this one going to go back after the penalty is going to go against Valdez Stuvance.
It's those little things. We just got done praising Tristan Houston on the other end for having the patience and avoiding that. There you see a blindside block on the Gators. And that's those little things that negate the field position. And the Gators have done a good job this year of not a whole lot of penalties. Last year, some of those second half collapses we saw on the Gators, a big part of that was self-inflicted wounds, turnovers, but also penalties. Gators have done a good job avoiding that thus far this season. Now the Tigers had a chance to have the ball around midfield. They're going to be marched back. Good bit here.
That'll be 15 yards from the spot of the foul as we get the call from our referee, Gregory Allen. And like I said, that penalty going against Valdez Stuvance, and clearly a very familiar name for folks familiar with McKeesport football. Russell Stuvance, who played for the Pittsburgh Steelers after playing at Youngstown State University, came from McKeesport. Ball will be pushed back to the 25-yard line where it'll be 1st and 10 for the Tigers.
First down, Tigers.
Garrett Charker steps under center. Triple option offense. Handoff's going to go to the first back through, and he'll rumble his way out towards the 35.
Over left side.
As Anthony Boyd, the ball carrier on that play.
Now that triple option gave Gateway fits last year. They would get lulled to sleep, and then in that last moment, Jalil Perryman, the quarterback last season, fake the pitch or call his own number, and by the time the Gators sort of had caught up to it cerebrally, they were behind. Perryman was on his way to the end zone.
This time the ball will go to Boyd, and he gets met in the backfield, but still able to drive his way forward to pick up enough for the first down as Roberson Louis-June gets involved in that tackle, also Jenkins.
A good second effort. Gators didn't really have a whole lot of wiggle room there. If that's a first down tackle, it's a successful defensive play, but there you had second in just a matter of inches. So a good second effort there by Boyd to just fall forward and get enough for the first down.
Bierman under center, motion man from left to right this time. Ball comes loose. It's picked up by the Gators. Running with it, S.J. Moorfield. He's got a blocker, and he's going to take it to the end zone for a Gateway scoop and score.
How about that? Once again, these are the plays we saw go against the Gators in key moments last season, but Jacob Santo busting that one loose with the big hit, jarring the ball, and then Moorfield opportunistically scooping and scoring. And the Gators getting it done defensively, picking it up for the offense who had the quick 3 and out. Now the Gators give themselves a little cushion with the defense getting some points on the board.
Blake Marsh on to attempt the PAT. Great game for him a week ago. Big field goal of 40 yards to go along with some pivotal PATs. As that PAT is up and good, and Gateway takes the early lead 7-0.
Simple as that. What a great start for the Gators. A gift wrap 7 points here against a rival, a team that took it to you last season. And you bring that home crowd into it right off the bat. And it's we were talking with some folks up here in the booth. What a beautiful night for a football game here in October. It was a little chilly last week, chilly throughout the week, but now it was creeping up towards 70 throughout the day. Still in sort of that mid to low 60s right now. It's a nice night for a game.
And of course, the signature sunsets here at Anna Marino Stadium, just magnificent. And I can't tell you how many times I've seen just beautiful, beautiful sunsets from up here at the press box at Pete Anna Marino Stadium. And look at those temperatures, 64 degrees, low humidity, low winds, just a perfect, perfect night for high school football here in southwestern Pennsylvania. Things change tomorrow as the rain will roll in, but things are looking good again for next week as we will travel to North Huntington as the Gators take on Norwin. But of course, we've got a lot of football to play between then and now.
Yeah, and a lot has happened in the first 2.5 minutes of this one. The Gators opportunistic. It just feels like a team that's playing with a lot of confidence in all 3 phases of the game. And nice to see them get off on the right foot here defensively.
Tigers on the return as it'll be Boyd. Boyd running to the left-hand side, trying to turn the corner with a blocker in front of him. He'll be strung to the far boundary, finally out near the 40-yard line. Great return for Anthony Boyd. But there's a flag down back at around the 27-yard line, so the officials have to iron this one out. Like I said, Gregory Allen is our referee. George Hickler, our umpire. Bill Fink, our head linesman. Joseph Magrino is the line judge. Jave Fidzitsko is the side judge. And John DeColati is the field judge. And a hold against the Tigers cost them 10 from the spot. The Tigers getting pushed back. So let's see what this opportunistic Gators defense can do.
This is a McKeesport team that also had not turned the ball over much coming into this one. Talk about, they don't pass the ball a ton, but even Garrett Tarker, quarterback, 7 touchdowns, just 1 interception on the season. It's a McKeesport team that doesn't make a whole lot of mistakes.
Wildcat Stu Vance, the Wildcat quarterback, runs to the left-hand side to that far boundary, runs over the official on that far sideline to go along with it. And that side judge on the far side, slow to get to his feet. And it looks like hopefully he'll be okay and be able to continue here in this football game. But as it stands right now, it's going to be second down and about a dozen for McKeesport. Well, good news, the official on that far sideline okay, and we will return to some football after that loss of a couple by Stu Vance. Stu Vance again, the quarterback, with a sidecar to his right. He runs right this time. Had a crease for a moment, but it closed quickly as the tackle was made by the freshman Jackson Smith. Smith in there in place of Ahmad Harris, who has a walking boot on this week. We saw Smith play very well in a reserve role last week.
Yeah, incredibly physical, looks super confident as the underclassman stepping in, unafraid as a freshman to play some major snaps as a linebacker for this Gators defense that has really been humming along these last few weeks.
Gators send a blitz. Toss to this near side is incomplete, too far to the boundary, as it was intended for Anthony Cromartie, another familiar name. Now that one maybe a little bit further back for some of our fans, but there was a Cromartie who played for the McKeesport Tigers, played in the Big 33 game some 26, 27 years ago.
Now that time that ball just carried a little bit out of bounds. Good job by Moorfield, not connecting with the receiver, understanding that that ball was carrying out of bounds and just letting the receiver go. Who cares if he catches it if he's out of bounds?
Punt unit on. A little bit of a high snap, but it's away by Bierman, and it'll be returned by Lewis. Lewis has blockers. Flag in front of the play as Lewis takes it to the far boundary. High steps and then steps out of bounds. Around the 36, but some of that return going to be negated because of an infraction against the Gators right around the 44-yard line.
And both teams getting a little grabby on the special teams units, pushing them back. It would have been great field position to start this drive for the Gators. Could have really put yourself in the fringes of Blake Marsh's field goal range to start the drive. Now you'll find yourself back closer to midfield. But still, defense comes out, gets another nice stop, a 3 and out, sets the tone here early, and now the offense gets a second crack at it from their own 46. Certainly, there are a few offenses right now on the WPIAL that are humming along the way that this Gators offense is. Talk about it, 46 points a game, and I think the big story every week is going to be, can any defense out there match up with all the skill position talent the Gators have had? Maybe the top end of it isn't the way that we've seen the last few years with Derek Davis, Patrick Bodie, players like that, but the consistency of the 4 or 5 different weapons that Brad Birch has, I don't know that any other team around this part has that kind of talent.
Birch looking to this near side left, and it is complete to Kenny Lewis. He pulls it in between double coverage as the tackle is made by Skylar Brown.
Good to see Lewis getting involved here early. It seems like he's been getting better and better even as an upperclassman as this season has gone along. Harder and harder to bring down.
Handoff, Reynolds trying to pull his way forward as he was met as he took that handoff by Amp Bruton.
Good job, Reynolds, holding on to that ball. You'll see Bruton did everything he could, was trying to grab that forearm of Reynolds to pull that ball loose. Reynolds able to hang on to it, fight for another down.
Birch tosses right, complete. Lewis again. He's inside of the 30 and then driven back.
Stopped by Bierman.
So will they give him the forward progress inside of the 30, or will they say after he started to fight back against the tackle, it will negate some of that forward progress, about 3 yards of it?
Yeah, ends up only really being a gain of about a yard on that one.
So 3rd and 7, it could have been 3rd and 4.
The good news is, though, you're in 4-down territory, so can be a little more ambitious with what you call here, though. But now it looks like a delay of game penalty is going to push them back a little bit.
Jaquan Reynolds and Birch both a little bit baffled
It did seem quick.
Yeah,
like a quick 25.
Delayed game against the Gators.
Now, last week we saw a lot of the clock being set at 40 seconds instead of 25, so that could have been something that kind of lulled the Gators offense to sleep, and this crew may be asking for more of the 25-second clock instead of the 40. Birch steps up, tosses, complete. Jenkins bouncing off of tacklers, surges, and is brought down at around the 17. Red zone time for the Gators as Richard Bierman makes the tackle for the Tigers.
What a real nice ball from Birch there. Across the middle of the field, able to put it right into the hands of the receiver Jenkins, who's able to make a few miss, get some of those all-important yards after the catch. Sets the Gators up real nice here inside the 20.
Reynolds dancing, bounces right. Inside of the 15 to around the 14-yard line. Tackle made by Spell.
Good patience there by Reynolds. Able to let that play develop a little bit and then bounce to the outside for a nice positive little gain there on first down.
Toss to the right to Jenkins, bobbled it for a moment, gathers it in. Inside of the 10 to the 5, where it'll be first and goal for the Gators at around the 3, as he's undercut on the sideline by Richard Bierman.
Nice little play call there. Don't overthink it. Get it into the hands of a guy like Jenkins, who's averaging almost 20-plus yards a catch, and let him do what he does, which is so good in open space, so hard to bring down.
Hand off up the middle, Reynolds driving his way forward towards the goal line.
Reynolds over the middle.
Brought down just shy of the touchdown. Bring up second and goal inside the 1.
This is another place where the Gators have been much improved this season, is getting points when they're down inside the 5-yard line, whether it be Birch or Reynolds, calling those two, scheming up run plays for them to get them into the end zone. The Gators have been really solid at that this season.
Official came from the sideline to push the ball back just a hair. So I think Louis June was trying to take a little bit of advantage and push the ball forward towards the goal line. And some shifting by the McKeesport D-line. And now the officials are going to reset the play clock and not say that that was set at all.
Gators might have caught a little break there.
Second and goal at the 1. Reynolds drives to the goal line for a gateway touchdown.
Gators have really picked up where they left off last week, Adam. They come out here, they look confident, and they are just having their way right now with the McKeesport Tigers. 2 big defensive stands, one of which turns into a defensive touchdown. And then here, they get that 3 and out, get the punt, the return negated by a penalty off Kenny Lewis, but they still get it at the 46-yard line. And then those 54 yards looked awfully easy as they march down the field with a nice mix of run and pass, getting the nice big chunk plays, but Reynolds able to keep them honest with little bursts of 3 or 4 yards, and there finishes it off with a nice little nudge forward into the end zone.
Snap, kick, and PAT good for Blake Marsh, and the Gators are on top 14-0 here in the mid stages of the first quarter. I'll tell you what, the McKeesport Tigers look like they got punched in the mouth over there on that far sideline, wearing their road white uniforms with the navy blue pants and the red lids. The Gators in their all blacks on the near sideline.
It'll be interesting. A couple different things to keep in mind here. I mean, one, it'll be interesting for McKeesport, a team that the only time I think really they've trailed in a game was, losing in overtime to Bell Vernon, a game in which they led part of the way through 14-7 before Bell Vernon mounted the comeback, forced overtime, and then won the game. And then on the other side for the Gators, there haven't been too many instances early in the season where they've built up early leads in games. And so it'll be interesting to see how they play from ahead, because, even games against Franklin Regional, Penn Trafford, they'd come from behind in the second half. The only game where they really built a big lead were the games against Plum and Hempfield. Plum, they were able to put them to bed. Hempfield, they let them crawl back into the game. So see how the Gators react here, being up by 2 scores early in this one.
Marsh's kick, big return for Spell. Spell off to the races, and a kick return for a touchdown of 90 yards for Spell.
Well, there's quite the response. My goodness, Spell goes untouched. We always talk about McKeesport, a team with a lot of physicality, a lot of speed, and there, Spell, the seas just sort of parted. If we get a chance to look at the replay, we'll see that there was a lane right up the middle, about as wide as the parkway right across the road from us, and Spell wasted no time and bursting through that hole and getting to the end zone.
So we've got ourselves an 8-point football game with the PAT coming for Nathan Kendrick. The officials asking for the play clock to be pushed back up as there was a flag over there on that far side. And this is going to start to get frustrating, I think, for both sides of the guys in the trenches, if they're going to continue to blow plays dead after some movement. As that PAT is up and in. And we've got ourselves a 7-point football game after the kick return for a touchdown by Kimon Spell.
Yeah, not surprised to see the Tigers regroup and put points on the board, but you always hate to see it happen via special teams. You want to make a team get down the field and meticulously have to work at it. There, an easy 7 points on the board in a matter of just a few seconds, and certainly takes away some of that momentum that the Gators had built by really dominating both sides of the ball here in the early going of this one. But on the other side of that, you've got some talented return men for the Gators and an offense that just carved up this McKeesport defense going down the field. And that McKeesport defense didn't really have any time to even get to the sidelines and make any adjustments. So now the Gators will get that offense back on the field with a chance to go right back down and put more points on the board as well.
No surprise with these two teams that we see splash plays early on. Scoop and score touchdown for the Gators defense, and then a kick return touchdown for the McKeesport Tigers. Saw a couple nice returns thus far for the Gators special teams units, as Terrence Cole got things started with a nice return on the kickoff for the Gators, and then we saw a nice return by Kenny Lewis, though that was negated by a penalty. Nathan Kendrick will kick off after kicking the PAT. Caught by Lewis at the 10. Cutting right. Out across the 20 where he is met and brought down by Richard Bierman. First and 10, long field to deal with for the Gators from the 23.
So for the Gators, no time to panic or speed yourself up at all. Nice balance and a nice calmness on that drive offensively by the Gators. Last time out, a good mix of run and pass, and I really like the mix-in of the intermediate passing there. Getting a ball to Lewis, getting a ball to Jenkins, about that 10 to 15-yard downfield range, and allowing them to get some yards after the reception. You don't need everything in one play here. Still up by a touchdown, take your time, just focus on executing.
Handoff, Reynolds nowhere to go as he is met in the backfield and brought down, knifing through to make the play. Skylar Brown for the Tigers.
Yeah, that one looked like a missed assignment or two on that one, because that one got blown up in a hurry. There was nothing going there for Reynolds by the time he got the ball. He had folks right in his face.
So second down and a dozen. Birch. Looking for, I think a screen is coming across the route was Jenkins. Just the way that play set up appeared to be a screen, but no blockers out in front. Regardless, the incomplete pass brings up 3rd and 12.
Yeah, and some pressure there in the kitchen for Brad Birch forced him to, I think, get rid of that one a little quicker than he would have liked, and so that one sort of ended up in no man's land. So hard to tell what they were really going for on that one, because it was another busted play.
Toss to Jenkins near side. Does he get his arms underneath it? The official on the near side says yes, he does. And that's close to that first down flag. And it's decision time for Don Hall. You know, do you go for it here on 4th down and about 1? The official on the near side, he says it's a first down. I thought he pointed that way at least. But based on where the ball's placed, it is, well, the stick says first. Now the sticks move, so a pickup there of a dozen, and that's what the Gators needed. I'll tell you what, Jenkins, since he has returned, has certainly been a spark plug for this Gateway offense.
Just so reliable, so sure-handed. High football IQ, makes the right plays. He's been excellent.
Birch setting up the screen, complete. Blockers in front of Reynolds. Slides out of a tackle, gets close to that Gateway first down. He breaks that tackle. He's got a lot of room in front of him.
He really does. A good effort there, shedding the blocker by Valdez Stuvance, as we talked about, and making that tackle. Because if Reynolds is able to step out of that one, he's got a lot of blockers in front and some real greenery in front of him.
The official on the near side saying it's first down again, and the official on the far side doesn't concur. The ball placed at the 43-yard line, the flag at the 43-yard line. That means the line to gain has been reached, doesn't it?
You know, Adam, we talked about it off the air before getting on. We haven't seen a lot of controversy with the officiating crew this season over calls, non-calls, things like that. But it's been these sort of logistics type things that have been sloppy this season. Seeing penalties enforced differently throughout the season, and even within games inconsistently. You know, one of the rule changes this year was holding penalties in the backfield wouldn't go further.
Yeah, it wouldn't go from the spot. It would go from the line of scrimmage.
Right. But we haven't seen that called. We've seen 11 or 12-yard holding penalties, which doesn't add up. It's not how the rules are presented. We've just seen some inconsistencies in some of those little details. That's been kind of frustrating because it's grinding this game early in this one to a halt with some of the pacing of it. And right now, if you're the Gators, you want to keep this offense in rhythm. Right now, you're right on schedule with what you're trying to do here against the Tigers.
1st and 10 finally for Gateway at the 43. Toss complete. Jenkins out towards the 50. Good open field tackle for the Tigers near that midfield stripe.
And Colin Smith coming up and able to wrap up Jenkins low. Another instance where Jenkins has probably one missed tackle. If he's able to get out of that one, can really bust that for a lot of yardage. The Gators are getting close here.
Gateway motioning to an empty set, pass complete to Jenkins, leaping up and pulling that one in single coverage against Stuvance.
I just don't know that many teams have an answer for a guy like Jenkins. His combination of speed and size and how sure-handed he is, and you know, on the other end of that, credit to Brad Birch. Look at where he put that ball as you watch that replay. I mean, just put it right up top where his receiver is able to go up and get that high point the ball. You can tell they have some real chemistry.
Birch tossing to the near side. It's complete. Kenny Lewis at around the 10 or 11. He'll step to the boundary after pulling that one in and being pulled to the sideline by Malik Davis.
Again, Birch able to thread this one between two defenders and put that right on Kenny Lewis, who's able to go up and get that one. Just more aggressive. The defenders were in the area, but Lewis got his head around quick, went up, got that one, and then steps out of bounds to give Gators another opportunity here in the red zone.
Birch running right. Driving his way forward inside of the 10. Great athleticism by the Gator senior QB.
Again, it feels like, why have they not been calling these for the last few years? I mean, what a wrinkle that they've been able to add to the offense with these design quarterback runs. And you know, Brad Birch there he's so much shiftier than you think he is. He's able to get away from two would-be tacklers there. Takes a third McKeesport defender to bring him down.
Birch tossing, and it's broken up at the goal line. Jenkins had a hand on it, and so did a Tiger defender, as that one was broken up by Anthony Boyd, I do believe, and that brings up 3rd down.
Good job by the DBs not getting sucked in by that play action. They almost did. You saw a little bit of a reaction, but they stood their ground. And Birch, he really put some heat on that one, but if he gets a little more on it, he's maybe able to get that into Jenkins. But more than anything, that's a nice play defensively by the McKeesport Tigers to break that one up.
Gateway going to have to take a timeout, talk some offensive strategy here on third down. Clock says 5. I think it's more around 4, but regardless, third and medium. A lot of things to talk about, especially when you're inside of the 10-yard line and the field becomes a bit truncated with the amount of room you have to work with. As we take a look at the Big 7 Conference in 4A, McKeesport, the number 2 team in the WPIAL rankings in both the Trib and Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. And they're at the top of their conference with Latrobe just behind them, Thomas Jefferson, with a game to be played to try to catch up to the Tigers. They're numbers 4 and 5 respectively in the PG and Trib rankings. Trinity Hillers, Connellsville Falcons, or Highlands Mustangs, and Ringgold Rams wrap up that Big 7 Conference.
And the big story last week was Trinity taking down Thomas Jefferson, and not only beating them, but beating them convincingly, 23-6. So that throws a wrench into things. And for the Tigers here, for McKeesport, that opens up the lane for them to, if they win out, obviously, and beat Thomas Jefferson, you're the sole winner of that conference. But even if you lose, you probably get a share of that conference title, even if you do lose that head-to-head with Thomas Jefferson. But that'll be, I believe that's the last game of the season for the Tigers. I know we'll see their schedule later on tonight in the broadcast, but that's going to be one that I know these fans for the Tigers are going to have circled.
Birch looking for the hard count. Only time to work with on the play clock. Quarterback draw. And Birch hit hard. Ball comes loose. Do the Tigers get it? They do. Well-designed play, well executed until the hard hit by the Tigers and a Gators turnover.
Yeah, not much more to say off of that other than, Birch had it. He's been sure-handed with the ball all season long, and credit to the McKeesport Tigers defense there. That was a hit. You heard on the crowd mic there, the just collective ooh when he got hit there. So take a look at the replay. Blocking was there. Then right at that last minute, Boyd able to get that helmet on the ball there and just hit it perfectly to squeeze that one out. And now McKeesport a chance to get back in this one and tie it up, but they're going to have a long way to go to do so.
We'll go back to that triple option that has been a signature of the Tigers over the years. Is the ball pulled away by a Gator and into the end zone for a Gateway touchdown? I mean, I saw S.J. Moorfield with the ball, carrying it into the end zone. The officials have to talk things over. Let's hope we get a replay on this one to see what happens.
The ball's loose.
Yeah, the ball was clearly loose as it was scooped up by S.J. Moorfield, and he took it in the end zone. They're going to say the back is down at the line of scrimmage.
No gain, second down.
Now, try not to be critical. I mean, that ball looks like very clearly out. It's been a poor showing by these officials early in this one. You hate to say that, but it's true.
Straight eye backfield. Spell with some strength out across the 10 towards the 15 and then the 16 before he's finally brought down.
If you're the Gators, you can't let that deter you. Can't get caught up in that next play. Focus on what's ahead of you. You've been attacking the ball very, very well here early on, limiting this triple option and its efficacy early in this one.
Again, the straight eye backfield for the Tigers. Hand off. Boyd this time, picking up a handful.
Stop by Knight.
I mean, granted, Vince, that the officials don't have the benefit of taking a look at replays like we have, but it's very frustrating to watch the way this game has been officiated, both mechanically and then a play like that where the ball was clearly out before the back was down. Nobody saw it. S.J. Moorfield was in the end zone before anybody other than S.J. Moorfield and the ball carrier knew that the ball was out. As this one, a mass of humanity, every black jersey on the field ties up Spell. They allow Spell to continue to drive his legs forward, and then ultimately some pushing and shoving at the end of the play which is not unexpected when you see something like this occur.
Yeah, if you're not going to blow the whistle, what I was just about to say was with some of these missed calls or the frustrations for how mechanically unsound the game has been thus far, you're going to get frustrations boiling over from the players. They're going to have to focus on trying to go out there and execute, let alone having to deal with external factors getting in their way as well.
Straight eye backfield, fullback takes it, it's Spell. Spell picking up big yardage for the McKeesport Tigers. And this is, while it may not be the George Smith triple option, straight ahead smash mouth McKeesport football that we have seen year in and year out. Mark Knight finally making the tackle.
Yeah, Spell coming into this contest just 16 touches offensively, but 263 yards on those 16 touches and 6 total touchdowns. So someone that is able to really make some big time splash plays for the Tigers. And you see, the big part of that is he's a big guy down there. He's hard to bring down. I mean, my goodness, he dwarfs over the tacklers that are trying to bring him down.
6'2", 255 pounds. He's listed as a tight end and a defensive end, but clearly a lot more than that. As we take a look at the Gateway Gators Conference, which, as we talked about in the pregame show, they've clinched at least a share of the conference title and the #1 seed out of the Big East Conference, as they currently sit as the number 4 and 5 ranked team, respectively, in the Post-Gazette and Trib. Franklin Regional and Penn Trafford just behind the Gators with 1 loss each. Both of those losses coming at the hands of the Gateway Gators. Norwin 1 and 2, who Gateway will play next week. Hempfield with a loss to Gateway this season, as do the Plum Mustangs, as Gateway traveled to Plum and got the big victory on the road.
Yeah, they're taking care of business, set themselves up nicely. We know they'll be in the postseason, and you start to think through what might that potential opponent look like, and you'll likely get probably the 3 or 4 seed, depending on how things shake out. You probably get the second team out of either the Allegheny 6 or the Northeast. You start to think about opponents like Pine Richland, maybe a rematch with Woodland Hills, which I know a lot of Gators fans would probably be anxious to see. You weren't at full strength. You weren't even close to full strength the first time around. That 27-0 decision over in Turtle Creek. You get a combination of Moon, Bethel Park, Upper St. Clair. So there's still a lot to get decided here these last few weeks of the season. And what we've talked about ad nauseum throughout the season is 5A with a lot of parity. Other than Peters Township, that's really run roughshod through their schedule. Penn Hills has that blemish against Moon earlier in the season. There's no real dominant teams. There's a lot of parity.
Tigers again with the straight eye. Boyd, the ball carrier, out to the 50 before he's brought down after a gain of a dozen. This is a very difficult circumstance for Gateway because the wind was taken out of their sails 2 times. One, after taking the ball into the red zone, had it in a goal line situation. Birch picked up the first down and then had the ball punched loose. And then on the ensuing play, the ball came loose from the McKeesport Tigers. S.J. Moorfield took it across the goal line for a Gators touchdown. And the officials just dropped the ball on that one after McKeesport quite literally dropped the ball. As Boyd, the ball carrier, again finds a crease, cuts right, and is brought down after a gain of 5.
Boyd over the middle.
Yeah, you can definitely tell that the momentum has swung over to the Tigers. They're getting that initial push at the line of scrimmage and getting 4 or 5 yards downfield before initial contact. And so if you're the Gators, you got to find a way to just block that stuff out, focus on what's ahead of you. You're ahead in this game. You've got a chance to get a stop here, get off the field, get that offense back on the field, and reclaim control of this game. Your offense has been humming along, just came up short on that last drive.
Tarker takes the snap and hands off. Nowhere to go this time for the ball carrier. That was Spell, not Boyd, but still a pickup of a yard and maybe 2. As the tackle is made by Mark Knight for the Gators.
So good job there. You get yourself into a 3rd down situation in medium. Try to get a strong push here. Bring in one of your big bodies there on the line, and Ramen Payne.
Handoff. Bouncing off of tacklers, driving his way forward inside of the 30, still driving his way down towards the 25 or 26-yard line before finally being brought down. Keith Spell.
So that was Cayman Spell that I was talking about, who had the 6 total touchdowns. So excuse me on that, but Keith Spell tonight, I mean, my goodness. He's just dragging people along for the ride tonight. Gators have no answer for him early in this one. We talked about his size at 6'2", 255 pounds. You see a lot of high schools where that's some of their bigger linemen on the team, let alone the guys toting the rock in the backfield. I mean, that is some serious size to contend with in the backfield.
Handoff this time goes to Keeman Spell. And he has nowhere to go as he gets to the line of scrimmage and then driven back by the Gators front.
Stop by 74.
Jacob Santo doing a good job wrapping him up and falling backwards, bringing him with him, using that 6'4", 260-pound frame to his advantage. And the Gators force a 2nd and long here for the first time this drive. Can they try and keep McKeesport behind the chains, force them to have to drop back and pass the ball, which they have not done effectively thus far tonight in the few instances that we've seen it.
Handoff going to Keith Spell. Not much room this time, but he's still able to drive the pile for a gain of a couple before the whistle finally blows.
And another really late whistle on that one. I mean, this play gets held up right here. Nothing's happening. And again, takes an extra 2-3 seconds for that whistle to blow.
And I remember looking in our rearview mirror early in the season, you talked about pushing the pile was something that wasn't going to be allowed this year in high school football according to the NFHS rules. But clearly that has gone by the wayside here in the WPIAL. We saw it a couple of weeks back here at Gateway. And you and Bob Orquist were on the call. We've seen it a couple times by the Tigers here tonight as the Gators breach the neutral zone on the hard count by Tarker.
That's a super costly penalty. It takes that 3rd and 8 situation where McKeesport might think about having to drop back and pass this ball, or at the very least, if they try to run it, you have a cushion now. 3rd and 3 with the way that McKeesport's been running the ball. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if they go back to Keith Spell on this one and just tell him to drag people along for the ride for a few yards.
Craig Schultz, the guilty party on that previous play for the Gators. Straight eye backfield, and the handoff will go to Keith Spell, who drives his way forward, picking up the first down for the McKeesport Tigers.
Again, that play doesn't work if it's 3rd and 8. You're able to get him down to the ground before he's able to get to that boundary. I mean, that's only a 4 or 5 yard gain there, but then again, at that point, it probably would have been 4 down territory for McKeesport. And, you know, when you're averaging more than 3-4 yards a carry with your running back in the backfield there, it doesn't matter if it takes all 4 plays. You'll get past 10 yards. Right now, McKeesport just playing some bully ball offensively.
That they are, especially when they give the ball to Keith Spell, who we said 6'2", 255 pounds. And the McKeesport Tigers are going to take a timeout and talk some offensive strategy. No, excuse me, it's the Gators who are going to talk some defensive strategy. Keith Spell, we talked about it, 6'2", 255 pounds, and I was looking at him, the way he runs the football, the size he has, and I had to look it up, but it was pretty accurate as I look back to my high school playing days just down the road at Woodland Hills. I was playing against a guy named LeVar Arrington, who was the #1 high school player in the country in 1996, and he was 6'3", about 240 pounds in high school. Ended up playing at Penn State at around 250, and then in the NFL at about 260. But very similar body types that we see from Spell. And looking way back to LeVar Arrington, a guy you may have heard of.
Yeah, there's some things you just can't teach at this level, and Keith Spell looking like a man among boys down there early in this one. He gets that motor running, keeps those legs pumping, and it's just hard, especially if you got a guy like that you can just keep throwing at a defense play after play after play. I mean, that's the recipe for success that the Tennessee Titans and Derrick Henry have carried for so long. Looks like he might be breaking down as he's getting into the later stages of his career. But, I mean, if you've got a guy who's just that physically imposing, who has that stamina, who's able to keep coming at you, eventually the dam's going to break on at least one play, and that's when you get a huge chunk play.
First down.
Beyond that,
Gateway,
McKeesport has just been steady as she goes on this drive, picking up yards in chunks anywhere from 6 to 8 at a time and keeping the sticks moving.
Pitch to the left this time. Tarker finding the pitch and the McKeesport touchdown for Keeman Spell. 98-yard touchdown drive for the McKeesport Tigers.
My goodness, and what a good play call there. You've been gashing them right up the gut, and so you come out of that timeout, you go with the fake up the middle, pitch it outside, and the Gators weren't ready for that one. Spell was all by his lonesome running into the end zone.
This eerily familiar to what you and Spencer Witt saw a season ago in McKeesport, Pennsylvania. A 2-score lead for the Gateway Gators early on, but the McKeesport Tigers taking advantage of Gateway turnovers and storming back to ultimately blow the Gators out of Tiger Stadium at McKeesport.
There's some stark differences I've seen thus far in this one. The Gators offensively have had time to execute, and for the most part have. Really unfortunate that they turned the ball over there inside the 5-yard line and then subsequently had a tough break defensively that took, as you said, the wind out of the sails a little bit. But overall, last year the story was on both sides of the ball that McKeesport was just so physically imposing. The Gators had no time offensively to do anything. Brad Birch has had a lot of time. The offensive line this season is one part of this team I don't know that we've talked about enough, and how they have grown as a unit throughout the season, a younger unit, using guys like Matthew Brooks to graduation. They've come together very well as this season has gone along. And thus far in this game, Brad Birch has had a lot of time to sit back there and pick apart this McKeesport secondary, and it would not surprise me if they were able to go down the field and score more points on this drive.
This kick will bounce into the end zone for a touchback, so the Gators will take over at the 25-yard line after that ball bounces, like I said, into the end zone. One thing I noticed as we took a look at that return unit for the Gateway Gators, a lot of athletes out there on the field. I think the book may be out on the fact that Gateway is a little bit susceptible to a surprise onside kick. And so they put a lot of more ball-handling athletes out there on that return unit. I saw Sid Bryant and Jackson Smith up on that front line. A couple other of the younger Gators, Jair Phillips, one of the reserves for Gateway, he was up on that front line as well.
Good to see Sid Bryant back in action after missing a few games.
Ball at the 20. Birch steps up, wrapped and brought down. He had time initially, but the pocket breaks down, and the Gators push back to the 14.
Yeah, had some time there. That play took a little longer to develop. The first option wasn't there, and by the time Birch tried to go through some of the other reads, had a couple Tigers all up in his business. Sam Bruton able to register the first sack of the evening for the Tigers.
Birch looks back to the left, now will tuck and run. Sidesteps a Tiger, leaps over another, and then is hit hard as he gets to the 16-yard line. Holds onto the football that time, though.
Well, he's got to be careful. This is the kind of defense that's going to make you pay if you leave your feet like that. Birch decides to pull it down and run. This is definitely one of the more athletic defenses the Tigers have seen, or the Gators have seen since the beginning of the year. If you're the Gators, got to try and get that ball out of Birch's hands a little quicker.
Birch, all kinds of time. Tossing to the left side, to the right side rather. Could have been a flag there as the pass intended for Dyson Harper in a white jersey all over him. But instead, the Gators are going to have to punt here.
Yeah, a little grabby there. That ball a little underthrown by Birch, which maybe makes it not a very catchable ball, although I would argue if he has his hands free there, that the receiver is able to make a little bit more of a play on that. So I'm a little surprised not to see the flag come out on that one. And yeah, disappointing to say the least that the Gators go 3 and out and give the ball right back to McKeesport after driving down and nearly getting points on the last one. This one, Birch, who's been excellent all season. The worst punt I think we've seen from him all season.
Undoubtedly. I mean, he seems to be much better in taking a longer shotgun snap and stepping into it instead of that traditional punt formation there. And Vince, as we rewind a couple of plays to when Birch took off running around the right side, picked up a couple of yards, and got hit very hard. Brad Birch, 6'1", 187-pound quarterback for the Gateway Gators. And he leaped over a Tiger and then was hit by Javier Bray. 6 feet tall, 390 pounds, running full speed.
That can't feel good, and that's not a position you want your star quarterback to be in many times. If you have any aspirations of making a deep playoff run. I know Birch is tough, and he's been great running the football this season, but you got to minimize him taking hits like that.
Back to the ground go the Tigers. It's Keith Spell again. Picks up a yard before being driven back. The ball was pulled loose by the Gators again as Jay Phillips came out of there with it.
Second down, 9.
And this one doesn't appear to be as clear-cut as the first play of the previous set of downs, where it could have been S.J. Moorfield's touchdown. Instead, it ends up being a 98-yard drive for the Tigers.
Things like that are going to happen if you let those piles continue to move for as long as you do after progress seemingly has been stymied. Some late whistles in this one.
And off to the second man through for the Tigers, and the Gators are waiting for it.
Love this intensity. The Gators coming out. You give up a 97-yard touchdown drive. You get it taken to you. What do the Gators do here on first and second down? They come out and they inflict punishment, allowing just a yard on these two plays. Now, can you get off the field? Can you get a stop here and get your offense back? Can you start to build that momentum back? Try to have that be infectious. It almost felt like the offensive turnover infected the defense in a negative way. Now can the defense get some of that momentum back and have that infect the offense in a positive way?
3rd and 9 for the Tigers. Toss is incomplete. Looking to the right-hand side was Tarker, but well off the mark as he was looking for Cochran over there on that far side.
It'll be interesting to see if the Tigers end up going offensive here at about the 35 or the 35-ish yard line. Could be thinking about 4-down territory, but when they're dropping back to pass, the Gators have all those athletes back there in the secondary, a lot of which are catching the ball on the offensive side of the ball. And so you got guys who are just absolute ball hawks in there. There was nothing going for McKeesport as they drop back to pass that ball. They're running to the line. It looks like they might keep the offense out here on the field.
And now a timeout is taken. And this time we're sure it's Matt Miller, the head coach of the McKeesport Tigers, who asks for the timeout. Now, according to the scoreboard, McKeesport has used 2 timeouts. Gateway has used 1. So it's perhaps back on that timeout we saw earlier when we thought the officials initially pointed to Gateway. Maybe they righted the ship and did charge that one to McKeesport. Time to take a look at what the Gateway Gators have done, and they have ripped off 4 straight victories, all in conference play, when it certainly is when you butter your bread. After losing 3 straight to start the season on the road at Mount Lebanon, then on the road at Woodland Hills, before losing at home to the North Hills Indians, and then looking forward on the road, the final conference game at Norwin next week, and then 2 weeks from now, top team in 6A, the Central Catholic Vikings, will come to Antamarino Stadium.
Team that showed it was human after all, getting humbled by Pine Richland, losing a 26-19 decision last week.
What a coach they have at Pine Richland, and John Ladon, the doctor. He has been able to win state championships at 2 different schools in a very, very short period of time, at Penn Hills, then at Pine Richland. As Tarker throws to the left-hand side, complete for a McKeesport first down. Pulling that one in is Kotuch. And boy, that's a backbreaker for the Gators.
It's the exact term I was about to use. You did all that work, won that battle at the line of scrimmage, you kept that offense in check, you were able to even, stop Keith Spell after he only gained a yard. Now you got to go right back to the drawing board with McKeesport bearing down on you at the 24-yard line, looking to take their first lead in the contest.
Carlos Diggs ended up making that tackle for the Gators in coverage. As Tarker's going to hand off, hole up the gut for the Tigers. And inside of the 20 for the red zone. It will go for Anthony Boyd.
And good blocking. Just look, the holes are there. And just the way that they run, full credit to all these ball carriers from McKeesport. You see those legs just continuing to churn. It is their goal to be as difficult as possible to bring to the turf every time they touch the ball. And it just seems like the longer this game has gone on, the harder they've continued to run.
Tarker hands off. Wrapped to the line of scrimmage that time was the ball carrier. Donovan Biggs will be the first tackler there for the Gators.
We forced another third down situation. This is definitely four down territory through and through for the Tigers, who are bringing in some almost full sail substitutions at the skill positions. A lot of depth for the Tigers. You look at their sidelines, they don't have the largest roster overall, but they've got a number of players they feel very comfortable with changing in and out, carrying the ball, catching the ball. We've seen a number of guys line up behind center for Wildcat quarterback. And
Tarker, he's going to hand off, driving his way forward, spell, and he's close to that first down flag as he takes it inside of the 15, and will they say it's a first down at the 14? It is.
Just enough, and if McKeesport does this right, it's going to leave very little, if any, time at all for the Gators to try and get a 2-minute drill offense back out onto the field.
Hand off up the middle. So the Gators sniff that one out for a minimal gain for Keith Spell. Roberson Louis June involved on that tackle.
And Louis Jones.
Big thing to keep in mind, if McKeesport does end up scoring here, they're going to get the ball to start the second half. So you talk about momentum and a chance to break this game open. Gators really need to get a stop here.
Snap fumbled. Pile up for it, but the Tigers were there first as Keith Spell falls on top of it before Jacob Santo could get there.
Boy, they very nearly got that break they so desperately needed. If nothing else, it forces the 3rd and long for the Gators and an opportunity to try and force this McKeesport team to drop back and pass the ball, which certainly they got that last connection. It's not been the bread and butter for them this season, that's for sure.
Timeout, Tigers.
Timeout taken by McKeesport. From what it says on the scoreboard, that's their last timeout. With 1:10 to go here in quarter number 2. Approaching halftime in a very quick first half thus far. Less than 1 hour played in real time, and we've played almost the entirety of the first half. Took a look at the Gateway schedule, and as promised, let's take a look at the McKeesport schedule. Their lone loss to the Bell Vernon Leopards, the number 1 team in 4A. 21-14 in overtime. Looking ahead for the Tigers, they've got a conference game at home in McKeesport next Friday night before they wrap up the season on the road at Thomas Jefferson. And that will be a heck of a football game.
Well, Latrobe, no slouch either. They've played well, just one loss in conference. They look like they'll be a postseason team, and if nothing else, a good test for McKeesport as well. As the Tigers, other than that Bell Vernon game, have really sort of run roughshod over not the toughest of schedules, but yeah, that last matchup, that's going to decide who comes out as that number 1 seed in that conference. That's going to be must-see TV for those that are fans in Western Pennsylvania high school football.
3rd down.
So 3rd and 9. Tarker pressured, wrapped, sacked by Donovan Biggs.
By number 9.
That's big. Big play by Biggs there, and Jacob Santo coming up a little bit limp, as you see here at the end of this one. He patted top of his helmet. He's going to need someone to spell him, and the Gators going to take a timeout here to make sure they've got all their ducks in a row on 4th down. And because if they get a stop here, they got 2 timeouts and an offense that can get this ball going the other way in a hurry.
And one of the issues is if Jacob Santo is unable to continue to play today, if he's not able to, kind of walk this one off, that puts Roberson Louis-June in a situation where he has to play both ways more and more as the game progresses. They have a decent rotation along that front four for the Gators defensive line, but if Santo is out, that means Louis-June has to play more, and that compounds things for your center.
Absolutely.
Number 42.
Try to keep guys as fresh as you can and keep that stamina at a high. We talked about McKeesport having guys they feel comfortable switching in and out. And for the Gators, they certainly have a number of those guys up front, but once you start experiencing any sort of injuries, that changes things. It looks like the field goal unit's out for McKeesport.
Kendrick will attempt a field goal of around 37 yards as this one is up. And that field goal is good, and McKeesport takes the first lead of the game.
Well, could have been worse. You got 46 seconds left and a chance to get some points on the board. Overall, a little disappointing for the Gators to go up 14-0 and again have a double-digit lead against McKeesport in the first half evaporate relatively quickly. But you've got a high-powered offense and a chance to move the ball quickly to even just get yourself into field goal range for Blake Marsh. We'll see what the Gators are able to do here.
Don't forget that this drive for the McKeesport Tigers that led to that 37-yard field goal for Kendrick was set up by a less than stellar punt by Brad Birch that gave the Tigers the ball somewhere around that 40-yard line. That's one of two special teams miscues thus far for the Gateway Gators tonight. The other one obviously was the big kickoff return for a touchdown for the first Tigers score after the Gators took a 14-0 lead.
Kendrick will kick off.
Kendrick boots into this one. Will be returned by Lewis from the 6. Steps around some tacklers. Driven to the far sideline and brought down. Beautiful open field tackle for the Tigers by Malik Davis, 5'7" senior.
Not a lot happening there, and precious time coming off the clock going across the field by Lewis. You got to try to make something of it, but a good job by McKeesport, just not really allowing anything of any real substance on that return.
First and 10 for Gateway at the 21. Birch pitching. No, he keeps it. Beautiful ball fake. Toss is complete to Jenkins. Still on his feet to the 30. The 40. Smartly steps out of bounds at around the 48-yard line. Beautifully designed, beautifully executed.
But the way, it was a great way to carry it out there by Dyson Harper. He really looked like he had the ball. That was a great fake. And then from there, a nice job by Jenkins, able to get through that tackle there, make sure they don't have to burn the timeout. All of a sudden, they're near midfield with one timeout left in the pocket and 27 seconds left.
Birch toss complete. Clock will continue to wind as he finds Dyson Harper on that pass play. Down to around 15 to go here in the quarter. And Birch will spike it, bringing up third down and 2.
I feel like you almost might have been better burning the time out there than the amount of time that came off the clock there. The only thing is maybe you hit an intermediate passing route, get yourself in position at field goal range, and then use that timeout. So sort of 6 in one hand, half dozen in the other.
I only got 5 in my hand. So 3rd and 2 for the Gators with 2 receivers on either side. They'll motion to an empty set. Birch complete. Jenkins brought down at the 24-yard line. And Gateway will take a timeout here.
I think they'll probably send Marsh out. After he hit the 40-yarder last week, they're well within his range. Might be tempted after how easy a couple of these completions have been to try and take a shot at the end zone, but I think you go for an opportunity for 3 here. We'll see. It looks like offense might still be in that huddle for a second. Now they're getting marched into the huddle there, so it looks like they're going to try for the 3.
Yeah, saw Coach Biggs calling the special teams unit together. So this is a big field goal attempt for Blake Marsh. Great news is the ball is right near the middle of the field. So it'll be a straightaway kick. It'll be about a 41-yarder, depending on where Phillips will kneel down to take the snap from Jackson Smith.
When he made that 40-yarder last week, he still had a little bit of room to spare on that one. That one didn't just squeak in. It was a well-connected kick. So he's got the range for this one if he's able to get that boot on the ball, as we've seen him been able to do.
So thus far we have seen drives from both teams offensively, and we've seen big plays from both teams. One, a splash play on the defensive side for the Gateway Gators. On the other side, a kick return for a touchdown for the McKeesport Tigers. So it will in fact be a 41-yard field goal attempt out of the hold of Phillips. Again, Smith is your snapper, Blake Marsh, the kicker. Straight away from 41. Perfect snap, hold down, field goal blocked. And the McKeesport Tigers grab the football. And that's the end of the first half, as McKeesport will take a 3-point lead into the locker room.
Did see only about 5 yards back. Usually you see the snapper be about 7 yards back, and so that time didn't really much matter. It looked like McKeesport just sort of got right around the Gators there, and that is a disappointing way to see what started very promising but ended disappointingly for the Gateway Gators that first half. You put those 14 up on the board only to see it come crashing down, and now we get to see, it's gut check time for the Gators. Will they be able to rebound and get themselves back into this one, shake sort of the bad taste of some of those breaks that didn't go their way, and that 97-yard drive they allowed to McKeesport? Can they get that taste out of their mouths, and can they come back and put together a good second half?
And the hope is that while the win was taken out of their sails after what could have been an S.J. Moorfield scoop and score for the Gateway defense for the second time today, that one went away. It led to a touchdown for the McKeesport Tigers, like we said, on that 97 or 98-yard drive. But does Gateway take some satisfaction in the fact that they held McKeesport to a field goal on the final defensive stand of that half after the Tigers were dealing with the short field? And number two, the Gators were able to move the ball very well and set up a decent field goal opportunity, even though it was blocked.
Certainly there's a lot of positives to take away. Last year, like we said, after the 10-0 lead for the Gators, it was complete and utter dominance by McKeesport the rest of the way. The offense is still moving the ball incredibly well. I think this game is going to hinge very heavily upon how this first drive coming out of the second half looks. Are the Gators able to get a stop and get McKeesport off the field, or will they all of a sudden be looking at a 2-score deficit that might start to seem a little harder to get through when this McKeesport team can run the clock? They run the ball incredibly well. They can start to try and play keep away at that point. But if the Gators get a stop, get that offense back on the field, it's anyone's game.
Your halftime score, McKeesport 17, Gateway 14. Enjoy the marching bands here at halftime, and we'll be back to get you set for quarter number 3 right here on GatewayGatorProductions.com. 17-14 your halftime score here at Pete Annamarino Stadium as the Gateway Gators host the McKeesport Tigers in an interclassification matchup. Adam Gusky, Vince Russo on the call for you here on GatewayGatorProductions.com. And Vince, as we take a look in the rearview mirror at that first half, big plays for both teams. Gateway with the scoop and score, McKeesport with the kickoff return for a touchdown, but we also see both teams be able to matriculate the ball down the field and put points on the board.
It really felt like that game and the dynamic changed after the Brad Burke fumble. And now it's, can the Gators pick up the pieces from that? There's been some flashes. They moved the ball at the end of the half, got themselves into field goal range. Certainly it was blocked, which is disappointing right before the end of the half. But defensively, just the inability to get off the field is going to be something they're going to have to rectify here in the second half. If they don't want to have the McKeesport Tigers just play keep away. Again, I think this drive upcoming is going to be really, really important.
One thing that we talked about before we stepped away for halftime was the fact that the Gateway Gators certainly have a foundation to build upon on the defensive end, both with a couple of stops they made, including holding the McKeesport Tigers to a field goal in that final drive. The Tigers had the ball after they got the ball right around the 40-yard line.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the fact that they were able to keep that to just 3 points speaks a lot to how that defense is playing right now. I mean, they were able to get some stops there at the end, but just got to be able to mentally focus. I think even that short punt, we've seen this team in the past in these bigger games sort of mentally check out or have some moments of weakness, and got to execute on those little things, that field position battle, and have something they came up short with. So the Gators got to mind their P's and Q's. There was a lot of that first half. They looked like the better team, but those little mistakes, McKeesport capitalized on them. Credit to them.
And the McKeesport Tigers will get the ball to begin the second half, so that is certainly something the Gators have to be cognizant of as they come out of the locker room, is that the defense has to buckle down like they did several times in half number one, including one time where they got the scoop and score, another time where the scoop and score happened, but it wasn't given to the Gators, and that ultimately led to a 97 or 98-yard field goal drive as we are back underway here in half number two. Stu Vance on the return for the Tigers, and he's got nowhere to go as he gets out near the 20, and then he's undercut by Dyson Harper. Wears number 5 this week. Usually wears number 14.
A good adjustment. Marsh putting that one on the turf, and that one sort of dribbling down the field and giving the Gators a little bit more time to get down the field, get that coverage unit in position, and then from there some sound tackling to make sure that, once again, McKeesport's got a long field to work with. More importantly, not giving up another return for a touchdown.
Let's see what the Gators have done to make adjustments with Keith Spell as the fullback for the Tigers as flag flies and a false start against the Tigers is going to push them back to 1st and 15. An inauspicious start for half two for the Tigers.
And if you're the Gators, got to pounce. Got to take advantage here. You've backed McKeesport to their own 13-yard line. Can't allow them to eat up a lot of clock and go for a long drive here, because as we talked about, if they take 7 minutes off the clock and put a score up, all of a sudden you're down 2 scores with only about 15 minutes of game time left. So you've got to take advantage here and try and get off the field and get your offense in a position to flip the field and get good field position.
Tarker with the eye behind him. Looking around the option to the right. Tarker drives it out across the 20 to around the 21 before he's brought down by a couple of Gators.
Even that play looked a little disjointed, like some Tigers got off the ball a little quicker than others, but quarterback keeper gets them the penalty yards back and a few more. You're still at 2nd and 7. Got to get a good push here, try and drive them back into passing situations. Try to force McKeesport out of their comfort zone offensively.
Gain of about 8 on that option to the right-hand side. This time they'll go to the ground, and off to the races goes Keith Spell. Spell inside of the 30. Stiff arm at the 10, and into the end zone he will go for a huge McKeesport touchdown, putting the Tigers up 2 scores on the Gators.
My goodness, that stiff arm at the end. Like I said, there's certain things you can't teach, and here, Spell, for the most part, goes untouched. And you just watch the end here on Carlos Diggs. That stiff arm, just get off me. Able to walk into the end zone. Tough to bring a guy like that down head on, let alone trying to chase him down from behind. As we talked about, 6'2", 255 pounds. My goodness.
And it's one thing if you're able to trip him up by the feet, but Spell just a terrific job to turn back and push Diggs down. PAT is up and in, and the McKeesport Tigers have opened up a 10-point lead on the Gateway Gators on a 77-yard touchdown run by Keith Spell.
Well, I suppose the only positive you take away from the Gators is it wasn't a drive that did take a lot of clock away. You've still got a ton of time left in this second half, even down 10. If you're the Gators, got to pick yourselves up. Got to be able to brush this off, go out, put a drive together, put some points on the board. You can see down there on the sidelines, things look a little flat at the moment. There's we're not seeing that same energy. And, of course, they just gave up a long touchdown. There's going to be some frustration. But this is a team we've seen face some adversity in the second half of games, even over the Big East slate, and be able to put that behind them and have some resiliency. Will they be able to do that here in this second half, down 10? It's going to show a lot about the mental buildup of this team heading toward the postseason. And really, this game doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things, but those little coachable moments, those do matter. Let's say you find yourself down 10 to Moon or Penn Hills in the playoffs. Are you going to be able to put together drives and stay calm in the face of adversity?
Kick bobbled and then picked up by Kenny Lewis, and he'll be strung to the near side. Nowhere to go as the tackle is made by Nazir Paul.
And Tigers just did the same thing the Gators just did. Hit the squib kick, make it dribble, make that return and have to go down to the turf to grab it. And by the time he's not catching that with any momentum, and that kick coverage team has been excellent. We've seen a lot of decent returns this season from Terrence Cole and Kenny Lewis, and now this McKeesport crowd, which traveled really well tonight, Adam, and there's a lot of folks here tonight, a big student section for both schools, but this McKeesport side of the audience is loud. It's a long field to go for the Gators.
Handoff goes to Jaquan Reynolds. He gets to the line of scrimmage before being met and brought down. Caden Daniels on the tackle for the McKeesport Tigers, he amongst others. No surprise at all that McKeesport traveled well. Short trip to Monroeville. We saw a huge crowd for them a season ago. They really, really support their football team in McKeesport.
They really do. Full credit to them. They always get up for these games.
Toss complete. Dyson Harper, the junior, picks up the Gateway first down out across the 25 to the 26.
That might not seem super consequential. I think that's a huge first down for the Gators. Keep this offense on the field. Keep them moving along. That's super, super important.
Birch drops back, tosses complete. Jenkins out across the 40 before being dumped down to the turf. A pair of Tigers there. Stuvance along with Cromarty.
Gators have continued to move the ball well. Got to stay calm. Birch has had decent time. That time gets that ball just over the top of the outstretched arms of that DB there and into Jenkins' hands. No reason to panic. This is an offense that can score points. Just stick with what's working.
Hesitation, then a surge by Reynolds. Picks up one before being pulled back by Bell.
I like the commitment to still sprinkling some of the run in there. Important. You don't want to completely sell out and just go pass heavy. This gives you the opportunity to still go with some play action, keep that playbook wide open, try to get guys to bite.
Play action. Toss left to Kenny Lewis. He got it to the 15, to the 10, to the 5. Gateway touchdown.
What a response. Boy, like a hot knife through butter. Gators able to just carve up McKeesport on that one. And again, I don't know that there are many defensive backfields that can keep up with the amount of talent across the field. We haven't heard Selby's name tonight, but even just the combination of Lewis and of Jenkins going back and forth between those two, one of those two is going to be open 9 times out of 10. You just got to find which one is and get the ball to him. And Birch has done a great job of that tonight.
That was just a magnificent throw by Birch. Great route, great catch, great finish by Kenny Lewis, and the Gators get all the facets rolling for that gateway touchdown. And I'll tell you what, Vince, for anybody that's soured on Brad Birch during his junior season, he has certainly returned to the form we saw as a sophomore here at Gateway. Just a spectacular senior season for Brad Birch, much like we saw when he first got here to Gateway a couple seasons back.
Well, and the wrinkles are there with the run game as well. We've seen him be able to do things with his legs that he has not been able to do in seasons prior. Explosive, shifty. We've seen him tuck the ball and run and be effective doing it in the past, but to have a 100-plus yard rushing performance this season, to be able to call design quarterback runs and have them execute at a high level, he's really become a dual threat quarterback and someone who started as more of a pure pocket passer.
Yeah, we saw a little bit of that as a sophomore, and really none of it as a junior, but this year back in his senior season, it's been the best. As that kick carries wide for Marsh, and in a situation where that could have cut into a 3-point game, it's a 4-point game, so the Gators need a touchdown just to reclaim the lead instead of being able to tie it with a field goal should they be able to hold the Tigers.
Yeah, tough night thus far for Marsh as you take a look at the athletic play there by Lewis to outrun the defender after the beautiful throw and catch. Blocked field goal for Marsh to end the first half and the missed extra point. You hope that doesn't impact his confidence too much. He was excellent last week. We talked about that 40-yard field goal, which not only was a 40-yard field goal, but in a pretty clutch moment. That game was far from done and dusted. That made it a 2-score game for the Gators and really put them in a comfortable position to salt away that game. That was a big-time kick by Marsh last week, so hopefully his confidence not shaken with a block and then a miss here tonight.
And as we look back at that blocked field goal from the latter stages of quarter number 2, Jair Phillips set up about 6 yards behind the line of scrimmage. Traditionally, you're somewhere between 7 and 8 with that hold. And when you've got a high school level kicker who has to kick a ball over 40 yards, it's not going to have a high lob to it. It's going to be a lower trajectory, and that certainly allowed McKeesport to knife through there, get a hand on that one with not a whole heck of a lot of effort with the short range as well as a lower kick.
Marsh on the kickoff.
Blake Marsh's kick will carry to the 10, where it will be returned by the McKeesport Tigers. Kimon Spell out to the 30, where he is brought down.
Another opportunity for this defense to build on the momentum of getting off the field the last time, or rather, giving up the long touchdown. Try to rebound from that. Felt like they didn't let something up because it was so quick. It was a bang-bang play, that 79-yard touchdown run by Keith Spell. Now the defense gets a chance to hopefully settle in, get a stop. Only down 4. Your offense has done its job here early in the second half. Now you got to get a stop.
So we've seen protracted drives. We've seen big plays. Now the option running to the left-hand side for the Tigers. And that's where they have buttered their bread since George Smith became the head coach of the McKeesport Tigers years and years and years ago.
Stop by 23.
In some ways, it's complicated, a lot of misdirection, a lot of moving pieces, but in some ways, it's really not. Find different ways to scheme up your guys into open space, and there's a number of set options you can run out of that option, and really the name of the game with that, or now the more contemporary read option you see in sports, is just trying to have enough options to keep the defense on their toes so they never really know what's coming next.
This time the ball will go up the gut to Keith Spell. And he'll drive the pile out across the 40 to the 41. It'll be a McKeesport first down.
They just don't have an answer for big number 6. My goodness. I mean, he has just been excellent tonight.
Well, it's certainly hard to have an answer to a fullback who is 6'2", 250 pounds.
I mean, he looks like a grown man down there. It's almost comical.
Tigers going to go to the air. The Gators were sucked in on the run. That pass down the far sideline, and Kenny Lewis finally is able to get out in front of Cochran, and Cochran slides down inside of the 15 to the 13.
Just a mental lapse you can't have happen. You can't have a receiver 10 yards open downfield. Lewis able to get on his high horse and save the touchdown, but not after he had been totally gashed on that one. mistake you rarely see the senior make, who's been excellent in coverage this season.
Taker going to hand off. Spell driving his way inside of the 10 towards the 7-yard line before he's stacked up and brought down by several Gateway Gators. Jenkins was the first one there. Knight gets involved as well.
Feels like the Gators are going to need to get a turnover if they're going to turn the tide in this one. See if they're able to punch one out here near the goal line.
I think the Gators may have 12 players on the field here. As the Gators ran a member of the secondary out, Kanan Bandy didn't run off of the field. And Morty Ivy, the defensive coordinator, had to run down and take a Gator timeout. In a close game like this, you hate to waste a timeout in this type of circumstance.
Oh, and he and Don Hall and the rest of the coaching staff understandably irate. But defensively, the Gators not aware of who needed to be where, and more importantly, who needed to not be where out on the field there. That's super frustrating. The Gators have to burn a timeout here. Only 4 minutes and change into this second half.
Saw a couple weeks back, the Gateway Gators moved back into the Post-Gazette 5A rankings, currently sitting at number 4 behind Peters Township, who is unblemished at 7-0, Penn Hill 6-1, Pine Richland 4-3, ranked 3rd, and the Woodland Hills Wolverines, while they did defeat Gateway and have a better record than the Gators, currently ranked 5th.
Yeah, and obviously that's flipped here as you look at the Trib High School Sports Network rankings. I mean, Woodland Hills got quite a team this year, and their only 2 losses are to some quality teams. They got blown out by Central Catholic early in the season, then a close loss to Penn Trafford, who we saw the Gators squeeze a win out of last week over in Harrison City.
To the ground go the Tigers, and into the end zone go the McKeesport Tigers. Though the ball comes loose, it's scooped in. Racing away with it was a Gateway player, but they will say it's a McKeesport touchdown prior to that.
It did look like Benjamin broke the plane before that ball came out. We'll get another look at it here. Oh, I don't know. That one's pretty close. The Tigers will get the benefit of the doubt on that one. It's hard for us to tell from that angle up here. But boy, that was a bang-bang play right near the goal line.
And if that is in fact a fumble, that will be the second touchdown by a Gateway opponent this season, with controversy loaded around it based on a fumble right around the goal line. As the PAT is up and good, and the Gators are down by 10 again.
The offense
now
has
11,
been,
excuse me.
Offense has been doing its part, but got to be able to get a stop. And this McKeesport offense, it's similar to what we saw last year. I mean, the offense has had time and they're making plays, but defensively, once this McKeesport offense started to get its bearings, and after a sluggish start, given the Gators some points in the early going, and since that 14-0 start, it's been 31-6 Tigers since, and that's not going to get it done, to say the least.
Yeah, Vince, taking a look at this one, we've seen it a couple of times now. I really do think that Anthony Boyd probably got that ball across the goal line before it was punched free. That's certainly not nearly as clear-cut as what we saw with the Plum touchdown in the latter stages of the second quarter on the road a few weeks back, or even the earlier fumble by the McKeesport Tigers in this football game that could have been an S.J. Moorfield touchdown. Instead, it ultimately led to wind coming out of the Gators' sails and a 97-yard touchdown drive for the Tigers.
Now they once again catch a tough break and have to try to find a way to get momentum back on their side. Still a lot of time left in this one. 3 touchdowns in just the first 5 minutes of game action of this second half. I thought the defenses would rise to the occasion a little bit more, Adam, than we've seen tonight. It's been a bit of a barn burner. Both of these offenses cutting the rug up and down the field.
A heavyweight fight of 2 offenses, and I think regardless of the outcome of this football game, especially for the Gateway Gators, who have 2 non-conference games out of their final 3 games, I think the fight is as important as it is the result as we take a look at this game and the game against Central Catholic a couple of weeks from now. because last year the Gators kind of limped into the playoffs because of them not having great showings against McKeesport in the third to last week and then in the final week against Central Catholic. Birch to the air. Double coverage for Kenny Lewis, and it is broken up by Kenny Lewis as the ball initially was heading down towards Anthony Cromarty, but Kenny Lewis kind of pulls it away from him, and that incomplete pass just stops the clock and brings up 2nd and 10.
My goodness, that was a gutsy throw, to say the least. That was a tight window into double coverage. It was a little bit of trying to get it all back in one play there. Lewis had a step momentarily, but he had to kind of play DB at the end there to make sure that that one didn't get turned over.
Birch looking left, setting up the quarterback draw. He's got nowhere to go as he's met at the line of scrimmage by inside linebacker Amp Bruton, who wears number 7. And that's a big number to wear as a middle linebacker for the McKeesport Tigers, because that number was worn by Kalik Hudson, who is now an inside linebacker for the Washington Commanders after playing at Michigan.
Tell you what, Bruton read that all the way. They had him spying the quarterback, and he just sort of waited and waited, and as soon as Birch took off, he filled that hole in a hurry.
Birch zips one into Kenny Lewis, who slides down at around the 30-yard line. The line to gain is the 30, so they will say it is a Gateway first down.
I'll tell you, well, what do we have here? This is another situation where we have a real delay and the chain gang sort of getting that moved along. That was a little bit of a generous spot at him. I think that Lewis may have come down just a tad short of that line to gain, but Gators will fight on.
Well, both judges on both sides had pointed timidly that it was a first down for the Gators, as this one is complete to Kenny Lewis. Sidesteps a tackler to the 50. Tigers are coming. Spinning out of tackles is Kenny Lewis. Oh, that was beautiful as he's finally shoved out of bounds inside of the 40 at the 38-yard line.
He's fun to watch with the ball in his hands, I tell you what. I mean, does the little backward step to freeze the defender and is able to spin away. Very rarely does the first defender bring him down, as you see 1 missed tackle, 2 missed tackles, 3 missed tackles, 4 missed tackles. And finally pushed out of bounds by the 5th defender.
Birch down that far sideline, the pass well out of bounds, incomplete. I think that pass was intended for Jenkins, number 3, down that far sideline, and that incompletion brings up 2nd and 10.
We saw them connect on that first drive with Lewis for the deep ball, trying to go back to the well. What's been successful on that one? They've been highly successful with the deep ball thus far this season. Can't knock them for trying to take a few shots here, try and inject some more life into this game as Gators seeing the play clock dwindle down on this one, but the ball hasn't been set yet. What are they going to do here?
Second down.
They're going to
officials timeout.
Yeah, they're going to take an officials timeout and then reset that play clock. Motion man Jenkins. Throwback screen. Reynolds couldn't hang on to it. If he was able to catch that one cleanly, he had some room, especially if he cut it inside. A nice job on the pressure applied by the Tigers, reading that screen well and maybe even getting a hand on the football.
Yeah, might have ever so slightly. That's still one Reynolds has got to come down with. He's going to be kicking himself watching that one on film, as he would have had some real green in front of him, and now likely 4-down territory, but it sets up a 3rd and long situation for the Gators.
Yeah, I don't know if Skylar Brown got a hand on it, but he read it well, went up in the air, and at least got in vision between Birch and Reynolds. Toss near side, complete. Kenny Lewis is inside of the 35 to around the 33. That'll bring up 3rd and 5. And like you said, it's 4-down territory. And not just 4-down territory because of the spot on the field, but the way this game is going, you're better off trying to get your offense to get things going.
Yeah, you need points. I mean, The Tigers are putting them up in bunches. If you want to try and stay in this arms race, you've got to be able to put points up in bunches here and hope that your defense is able to come away with a turnover or a big stop to try and flip the field and get you back into this one.
Toss left complete, Lewis. He's got the first down to the boundary and steps out of bounds inside of the 25 at around the 23.
But a good job by Jenkins and company out there on the outside, not holding, doing a good job. You see Jenkins just sort of getting in the way there, not getting his arms on the defender. Same down the field, Derek Selby keeping those hands inside. Good play call to just get Lewis into space, who's so hard to bring down as we've seen tonight, and just asking him to go and get you a half a dozen yards or so. Great job.
Birch, toss complete. Jenkins, he's got the first down, and he's undercut it around the 5-yard line. First and goal for the Gators at the 3.
Boy, glad he hung on to that one because he took one heck of a hit. Got completely upended. Nice little play design. He sort of filters out from the tight end position, is sort of there in no man's land by himself, and just gets walloped by a handful of defenders for the McKeesport Tigers.
Handoff, Reynolds up the gut and into the end zone for a Gateway touchdown, and it wouldn't be a Gateway football game if it wasn't a Jaquan Reynolds TD.
Yeah, his second of the night. He's now up to 13 touchdowns on the season, all of which have come over the past 5 weeks, I want to say. My goodness, he has been incredibly special when he's had the ball in his hands near the goal line.
So Gateway going to keep the offense on the field here because they are going to go for 2, which certainly makes sense, considering there was the missed PAT by Marsh on the Gators' last touchdown. Birch tosses it complete to Kenny Lewis for the 2-point conversion. Combat catch for Kenny Lewis.
I love not overcomplicating the 2-point play there. Just trust your talented senior receiver to run an efficient slant route, which is so hard to defend against if all you need is a few yards. Just get that quick step inside, put that ball right in front of him where only he can catch it. You see down there, Kenny Lewis getting some props for running a great route, making a great combat catch, as you said, Adam, and getting that point back, which is oh so important as this game has continued to stay close well into the second half.
This receiving core for the Gateway Gators has shown brightly in spurts all season long, but tonight just something really, really special with Kenny Lewis, Stephen Jenkins, who of course we've seen make big play after big play since he's come into the lineup for the Gateway Gators. And we always see contributions by Derek Selby, including on a nice block on that last touchdown drive by the Gateway Gators, and the junior Dyson Harper always contributing.
Well, Harper made the first down catch on this drive on a 3rd down, which kept it moving. And that can't be overstated enough as the importance of his contributions, keeping this drive moving and allowing the Gators to get into a position to put another 8 points on the board and pull them back within 3.
Marsh bouncing kick to around the 20, or rather the 26-yard line, and there's a dichotomy of strategies there. You don't want to kick deep because they've got great return men, but on the other hand, when you kick it short, it allows some of their mid-range players who are pretty athletic as well, like Richard Bierman there, to get that return out towards midfield.
Yeah, they got great real estate to start with here. Ball at the 45-yard line, and Bierman looked very comfortable, just picking that one up, rumbling forward, shedding a few hits and falling forward, and now the Tigers set up good field position, and Gators, can they get a stop? It's been tough sledding for them since that first quarter.
Ball ultimately spotted at the 47 where it's 1st and 10 for the Tigers. And the ball will go to Spell, and Spell will elude the first Gator in the backfield and rumble his way forward for a McKeesport first down into Gators territory at the 48.
Spell was carrying that one out pretty wide there, sort of loaf of bread in it, as you might say. Not really hanging on to that football too closely. If he's not careful, these Gators are opportunistic and been punching at the ball all night. And again, I really do think it's going to take a turnover to flip this game for the Gators defensively. See if they can come away with one.
Straight counter coming to the near side left. And Boyd is brought down after a gain of about 3.
Over left guard.
From the 43 down to the 40.
Foul by 11. Knight.
And just like that, a few plays.
7.
McKeesport already into your territory. Still a lot of time for as fast as that first half went. We've had a barrage of scoring here in the second half that's kind of slowed this game down a little bit.
Handoff goes to Spell, and he will continue to spin, drive, and power his way to the 30-yard line.
Keith Spell, the ball carrier.
Really nothing complicated in what McKeesport's trying to do right now, because this is that classic football of we're going to line it up, run it right at you until you can prove you can stop it. And again, Spell sort of keeping that ball not real close to the body. Every other play, it seems like they'll give it to one of the other tailbacks, take their chances, even if it's a 2 or 3 yard gain as opposed to what Spell's been ripping off. Just give it to him every other play, allow him to catch his breath for a few seconds and let him go for 10 or 12.
Moving around the option to the right-hand side is J.R. Phillips. Strings that play to the boundary. Nowhere to go for Kimon Spell, 5'10" freshman.
Good job reading that. These were the kind of plays last year that killed the Gators, where they would get lulled to sleep, and we did see that on the long pass play in the last drive. So they haven't been absolved of that this year completely, but we haven't seen the amount of big chunk plays that we saw just absolutely kill the Gators in last year's contest, where it would be they'd get lulled to sleep by the fullback and tailback, plays right at the middle, and then an option out wide.
Keith Spell up the middle to around the 25, maybe the 24-yard line.
Over the middle.
And hard to believe, that 4-yard gain by Keith Spell, that's a big win if you're the Gators, limiting him to that with how he's just sort of been running downhill at you. And now a big 3rd down, but you recognize that this is 4-down territory, so you really got to dig your heels in and force the 4th and medium where they might think about passing.
3rd and 5, option left. Tarker wrapped after a gain of about 1 or 2. Nice job by the Gators defense as Mark Knight leads the charge on the tackle for Gateway.
Moorfield, Jenkins, and Knight.
Now, do you really think there's any question as to whether or not they'll give number 6 the ball here on 4th and 4? And if you're the Gators, this feels like a pivotal moment in this game with how your offense has been playing in this second half. Can you get a stop here, get Brad Birch and company back on the field to try and get this ball and take a lead into the 4th quarter?
Handoff goes to Spell, and he will get to the 20 and then somehow drive his way forward for another 2 yards and a McKeesport 1st down.
And there are a litany of bodies down on the field, Keith Spell being one of them, along with Raman Payne and another Gator down writhing in pain. Looks like Craig Schultz would be a big-time loss for the Gators if he can't get up. Schultz and Spell still down on the field, Payne up and moving.
And if you lose Schultz in this situation, the Gators are already without Jacob Santo. I saw him working out on the sidelines trying to get his legs back underneath him. He was working with Jacob Pulowski, the two-way lineman, trying to make sure that he may be able to return to the lineup. But as I see him walking around, he's still got a hitch in his giddy-up on the sideline, let alone the Gators having to worry about Craig Schultz then coming out of the lineup. And then, of course, McKeesport, they've got a lot to worry about because their bell cow thus far tonight, Keith Spell, is down.
Now it looks like they're tending to his ankle. It looks like a lower body issue for Schultz as well. And with both of these players, you don't want to rush players back into a non-conference matchup. Ultimately, you'd like to make sure they're available for future contests. And Schultz, the good news, he is up and putting weight on both of his legs, but he's coming off pretty gingerly. I don't know that we'll see him again tonight.
And decent amount of wobble on that right leg. That's certainly nothing that is encouraging as he comes to the sideline, being partially assisted by some of the athletic training staff and coaches for the Gateway Gators. And like we saw Keith Spell, he was actually able to trot off to the sideline. And then one Schultz crossed the sideline. He seemed to get an additional hitch in that right leg. Well, back to live action we'll go, where it's 1st and 10 for the McKeesport Tigers at the 19-yard line after they picked up the first down on 4th and short. And straight up the gut go the Tigers, and they go from power to speed at the fullback spot as Anthony Boyd lines up at fullback.
And Spell's standing there on the sideline. The other Spell, that is, Keith Spell, he's going to check back in. So, much to the chagrin of this Gators defense, certainly glad that he is healthy. Never want to see anyone go down with an injury, but the Gators, he is not the person they want to see lining back up in that backfield, because he's been a real issue thus far tonight.
Keith Spell in at fullback. That means Boyd retreats to tailback, and Kimon Spell is out of the game as Keith Spell is wrapped at the legs, and Donovan Biggs says, not this time, big fella.
Yeah, real good job of getting in there, going low. I mean, with a guy that big, that's always the key. Leverage. You see right there, able to just grab those ankles, and the other guys come in, clean it up top. Donovan Biggs, great job getting inside there quickly and stopping that play before it got started.
Third and about 7. Ball just inside of the 15. McKeesport checks to the sideline.
They don't have to run a play here if they don't want to. Game clock is about a half second faster than the play clock, and it looks like they're going to let it. They almost got Ramen Payne with the hard count there, but that was just a design, try to get 3rd and 6 to turn into 3rd and 1.
And you got to give Ramen Payne some credit as he lurched forward. He went from a 3-point stance to a 4-point stance, but didn't breach the neutral zone, and that's not easy to do when you stand 6'4", 350.
I cannot imagine, but I appreciate that Payne was able to hold back just enough to not lure that offensive player out of his stance. And so the Gators will keep that from being a 3rd and 1. It'll be 3rd and 6, and they're starting to get a little bit of a push here. You're in deep, but if you can get a stop here, try to even just force a field goal attempt. I mean, that would be a big-time win. Whatever you can do to keep this a one-possession game with 12 minutes left on the clock would be a big win for the Gators.
Talked about it in the first half. Just a magnificent night for high school football in southwestern Pennsylvania. Light winds, reasonably cool temperatures, but not too cold, not too warm at kickoff time. You see that humidity starting to build up because rain is headed to the Pittsburgh area overnight and raining on everybody's Saturday plans for tomorrow.
Yeah, we were thinking of trying to get to the pumpkin patch, but those plans in the group chat have been formally canceled.
And we were talking about taking the family over to Kennywood for their Phantom Freight Fest, but if the rain rolls into the nighttime, we probably won't be doing that. That'll give us an opportunity to watch some college football, though. Of course, next week, the Gateway Gators on the road, final conference game of the season against the Norwin Knights before wrapping up the season here at Pete Annamarino Stadium against the #1 team in 6A, the Central Catholic Vikings. A game that looked like a scrimmage a year ago.
And likely will again. I mean, it really is. I know we've talked about it more than enough times, but it really is just deflating to have such an inconsequential game at the end of the season when really both of those teams are going to be turning their sights to hosting a playoff game.
3rd down.
3rd and 6 for the Tigers. Triple option to the right this time. The pitch. And racing down inside of the 10 to around the 7-yard line. Donovan Biggs makes the tackle on Anthony Boyd. And that is enough for the first down for the Tigers, and it's 1st and goal for McKeesport at the 7.
Now that hesitation gave Boyd just enough of the wiggle room to get that first down.
This time up the gut it will go for Spell, and he'll drive his way down to the 1-yard line. Pickup of a half dozen. And it's rare that he's not picking up at least 5 on every play.
The Gators have done a better job against him and this McKeesport rushing attack in general this drive, but it just hasn't been enough.
Handoff, Spell. And he will cross the goal line for a Gateway touchdown. As Gateway was, or excuse me, for a McKeesport touchdown, as Gateway wasn't able to stop him from crossing that goal line. Raman Payne, amongst others, was there doing their best. Louise June also in there, but the officials say it was a Tiger touchdown.
Certainly, it's a moment where you miss Craig Schultz, who's still getting tended to down here on the sidelines. The entire training staff looking after what looks to be a knee-related injury, which you just hate to see. And it's a Gators defensive front that's already had a real tough time tonight trying to slow down McKeesport's rushing attack.
And when you subtract Schultz, then you subtract Jacob Santo like the Gators had to do early on, you start to compound things, because I talked about it in the first half. You have so many more players, they're going to have to see more two-way reps, especially Roberson, Louise June. McKeesport reclaims a 10-point advantage, 38-28.
Credit to them. Every time the Gators, who have been mightily resilient in the second half, have gotten this close to inching back ahead, McKeesport's been there to slam the door back in the Gators' faces offensively. Really, neither defense has had much of an answer for what these two offenses have cooked up in this second half.
McKeesport strength, the run, they've shown it. Gateway strength, the pass, they've showed it.
And 35 points here, and really just the fourth or the third quarter and a few seconds bleeding into the third or the fourth. Got myself mixed up there. I mean, that's 5 touchdowns at about 12 minutes of action. That's not too shabby from these two offenses.
McKeesport's offense has manufactured 31 points today. Gateway's offense manufacturing 21 points, as Gateway has a defensive touchdown and McKeesport has a special teams touchdown, as Kenny Lewis looks to get some special teams flair for the Gators, taking it out across the 30 and brought down at the 31-yard line.
A nice return there. This Gators offense has been humming along, but they spent a decent amount of time on the sidelines there as McKeesport, again, a long-winded drive, running the ball effectively. Now on the other side, can the Gators go back to the passing attack, try and get some points up quickly, as they've been able to do so well in the second half. They don't score too quickly, though, I suppose, in the other end. You want to try and give this Gators defense a chance to catch their breath, maybe keep that McKeesport offense on the sidelines as well.
Well, Jacob Santo is out there for the Gators offense right now. That's good news for Gateway, that he is lined up at left guard, as Gateway, with a false start, they move prior to the snap, and instead of 1st and 10 at the 31, it'll be 1st and 15 from the 26. And one thing that we really haven't talked about this season, but we have talked about in the past, is Santo back in the lineup here playing offense. On offense, you act, you don't react. So there's a lot less stress on the joints, knees, etc., when you don't have to react and cut the same way you do when you know what you're going to do, as opposed to having to react to what your opponent's doing. Birch with time, tosses near side, intended for Lewis, but too strong, out of bounds.
Yeah, just airmailed that one. I've seen that a couple times tonight, but by and large, Birch has really been a precision passer tonight. That one a little wobbly, maybe just didn't get a full grasp on that one. Slipped out of the hand, and all of a sudden you find yourself in a second and long situation. You don't want to get behind the chains on a team like this in McKeesport. He's got more than enough athletes to bring the blitz and make things uncomfortable.
Toss to the near side is complete. Selby on the slip screen, but the Tigers sniff it out, make the play quickly, as Richard Bierman ends up making the stop for the Tigers.
Yeah, my goodness, they stopped that one before it really got going. Looked like there was a little bit of daylight there, but shedding off of the blocker, Bierman comes up, lays a big hit on Selby. Now 3rd and long for the Gators.
3rd and 11 for Gateway. Stepping up in the pocket, Birch leaps, bounces off of tacklers, tosses near side, looking for Lewis, but too high, and then incompletion brings up 4th and 11.
You wonder what will the Gators do here. This is a tough spot to try and go for it. But how good do you feel about giving that ball right back to McKeesport when you've had no answers for them offensively?
There's a flag. An eligible receiver downfield against Gateway, and obviously McKeesport's going to decline this one because you'd much rather have 4th and 11 than 3rd and 16 and give this potent Gateway passing attack another opportunity.
100%.
Look at what Birch did there. Throw back to the Tim Tebow with the leap and all that kind of stuff. And McKeesport's going to get the timeout in. Prior to the snap. So I think they may not have had the proper personnel out there to return a punt by Birch.
Looks like a little back and forth between Coach Miller and the officials there. My goodness, a little fire between those two. Not sure what that's all about, but looked like Birch was set to do the pooch punt there. It looks like the Gators, in all likelihood, will be sending this one downfield. If we've got any hope of winning this non-conference matchup, going to need a stop on this drive, Adam. You're going to need to find a way to either get a turnover, just get this McKeesport offense off the field.
Coach Miller talking with our referee, Gregory Allen, trying to iron out what was said moments ago. Looking forward here on GatewayGatorProductions.com. We've got one final game of the week. This upcoming Tuesday night as the boys soccer team will host the Deer Lakes Lancers. Spencer Witt will be on the call for that one. Then Vince and I will be on the call out in North Huntington as the Gators take on the Norwood Knights. And then Spencer steps back behind the mic for football with you, Vince, to wrap up the regular season on Friday, October 27th. And the Gators will have a WPIAL playoff game on November 3rd. In all likelihood, we will have that game for you on the NFHS network.
Exciting time. Once you start getting into mid to late October, these games, for the most part, have a lot of consequence. We know we got a couple here that, with the Central Catholic game, that not quite as much, but hard to believe we've already got through this much of the season. It always goes so quickly, but what a fun season thus far. What a tale of two seasons, talking with folks around the press area this afternoon getting ready for the game. You know, after that 0-3 start, wondering where would this squad end up? Now looking where they're at, conference champs. What a season.
Well, it says 3rd down on the screen, but 4th down on the flag, and the pass is complete to Jenkins, so it doesn't matter because it's a Gateway 1st down out to the 49-yard line.
I think that timeout actually really benefited the Gators. It slowed things down. That defense for McKeesport didn't come out with nearly as much intensity, and then a nice back shoulder throw there, able to get it to Jenkins. This keeps the drive alive and this game alive for the Gators.
You say that he stepped out at the 46. I beg to differ, but regardless, it's only a matter of a couple, maybe 3 yards. As again, he finds Jenkins, does Birch. Jenkins carrying Tigers inside of the 40 to around the 39-yard line.
Yeah, it looked like Jenkins got up towards midfield, but he's able to get those yards back and a few more on another nice connection. I think that's what you got to keep doing. Get it to him and Lewis in space and just let them stack up those yards after the reception.
Yeah, he flashed free, waved his arms, and Birch found him. Throwback screen to Reynolds. And Reynolds is wrapped and brought down back at around the 44-yard line. And the tackle was made by Keith Spellin. Yeah, right, Vince. He's not able to get to his feet as he pounds to the turf.
Shame to see him come up limp with how well he's played tonight on both sides of the ball. Hope that it's not anything major, anything serious.
Of course, the focus is on Spell and the injury here, but as we take a look at the replay on this play, that's a situation where if Reynolds is able to escape Spell, things can happen. But the problem is when you've got the athletes like the Tigers have, it's not easy to make things happen. Well, the good news is it looks like it just may be a major cramp on the right leg of Spell as they are rubbing and stretching and rubbing on that calf of Keith Spell, the 6'2", 255-pound senior. He's listed as a tight end and defensive end, but he has been the fullback tonight for the Tigers.
Boy, has he played well. And boy, has he been utilized a lot tonight. I'd be cramping too. I'm surprised I'm not cramping just watching him down there tonight. I mean, he has toted the rock probably well over 20 times. He's playing defensive snaps. It's cold out there, starting to chill a little bit. It was a beautiful, beautiful night early on. Now you can feel a little breeze coming in.
When we were out in the hallway during halftime, and some of the other doors were open, there was that cross breeze coming through the upper level of the press box here. It was rather chilly out there. Fortunately, here in our little piece of heaven, we keep the doors shut, and that keeps a lot of that breeze from blowing through the window and out the back door. Spell is going to be helped to his feet. Not able to put a lot of pressure on that right leg. He's got that limp as he walks to the sideline.
So we got another situation where the scoreboard says second down, but the down counter says third.
And you've really got to rely on what the down counter says, because that is controlled by the guys in stripes on the field. And at the collegiate level, inside the industry, at the collegiate level, the clock and the play clock are run by by officials, high school level officials who are collegiate certified. And then they also direct who is running the scoreboard on down and distance, etc. Now the flag over there on that far side has been adjusted to second down and 15 to match what it says on the scoreboard. And Roberson Louise June picked up the ball and put it back down.
Now, revisiting that, I was doing the play-by-play math in my head that the Reynolds play was a first down, but they wrapped him up and threw him back. So I was a little confused. I knew we had a bit of a break there, but glad they changed that and got that right for second down and out. Second down, a long ways to go for the Gators.
Right there, that was that 15-year difference and a lot less football on your cranium than mine. Is this pass intended for a Gator over here on the near side, and Kenny Lewis is incomplete. And that brings up third and long for the Gators.
Third down.
Still 4-down territory. Really anything at this point is probably 4-down territory for the Gators. You just got to keep trying to stay in this arms race without blinking. You got to put points up and then hope you can get a turnover the other way, or find a way to just get that stop that's been so elusive here in the second half.
Birch has time, tosses it. Jenkins has the ball knocked loose. The Tigers scoop it up. And McKeesport will take it away from Gateway, as Gateway has been, or rather McKeesport has been laying the lumber, and that's the second time today we see a ball knocked loose from a Gateway player because of big hits by the Tigers. And it may have been Anthony Boyd knocking this one free. And I'm trying to think, was it Anthony Boyd? No, it was not who knocked that one free. It was Kimon Spell. But was it Anthony Boyd earlier who knocked the ball loose from Birch, which squandered a Gators opportunity to score?
I don't know if we can get that replay up one more time. I could have sworn Jenkins' butt might have hit the turf before that one scored it out. It really doesn't matter at this point looking back on it, because that's going to, they're not going to overturn it. There's no replay, no challenges here at the high school level. But you take a look here. Goes up, gets it, comes down. No, that ball's out before his butt hits. That's a good job by our crew to catch that replay. That was stripped on the way down, and that's a super costly turnover for the Gators, with not only if you do get a stop here, which your defense just candidly has not been able to do in the second half, but time is really going to start to become your enemy down 10 points here with 9.5 left.
Anthony Boyd to his feet, being helped to the far sideline. He has to slow up as he walks around his team's huddle. You mentioned our crew. Want to thank our diligent crew, our camera operators, Bree Gusky and Dale Brakar, our Camera One operator and chief engineer, Lee Schaefer Jr., our director, Lee Schaefer III, who is also in charge of all of our IT needs, Allie Gusky, our replay operator, of course, our announcer extraordinaire, Vince Russo, color analyst when I'm here, play-by-play announcer when I'm not.
First down.
You're all right too, Adam.
I try. So up the gut goes Stu Vance, and he'll pick up a yard or two out to the 34.
Second down.
I think between you and
9.
Lee Jr. and Lee the third, the folks don't see a lot of the behind-the-scenes stuff and how much things have been streamlined over the past several years, and the ability to be able to travel on the road and have home and away equipment and to do the things we're able to do doesn't just happen. So a lot of credit to you three especially for being able to make that TV magic happen.
Of course, none of that would happen without the cooperation of Gateway School District Athletic Director Don Hall, who's not just the football coach, and his assistant, Jill Fischetti. We get just so many people helping us out. The custodian crew, Bob Brown and his staff and maintenance, always helping us out, making these broadcasts possible. Both access to the building for away games and our ability to use the facilities for our home broadcasts.
Gators have forced another third and medium-ish situation. These have been the plays where McKeesport's been able to break their backs with Spell up the gut for 5 or 6 yards.
And it's Spell taking the ball across the 35 out to around the 38. Look at that strength by Jenkins. He was able to pull him back after initially Spell won the battle. It looked like Jenkins won the war with a little bit of help from Mark Knight.
I think we're going to see the punt team come on here. The Gators able to get McKeesport off the field after only about 90 seconds, 2 minutes of game time. If you can get this quick strike offense back out there, all of a sudden you're back in business. Big ups to that Gateway defense for coming through when they really needed it the most.
Low snap, punt away by Bierman. Kenny Lewis on the return. Down the crease. Retreating. Out to around the 45 before being pulled back by Tigers galore.
Good field position for the Gators and chance to get back into this one.
Stopped by Cochran and Bruton.
You have to wonder on that third down run. Spell didn't look like he had quite the punch that he had. You wonder if even he's just starting to get tired as this game is going on. And you talked about Jenkins on the other side. His emergence coming into the fold after missing the first few games of the season. And we talked about him being the transfer from Woodland Hills, a Bowling Green recruit. And he looks like a dude who already could step in and play at the next level. I mean, his athleticism, like we talked about, the football IQ, and just the raw strength and athleticism that he has, it's just so incredibly noticeable.
Birch with time. Toss into the near side left, looking for Reynolds. Reynolds was covered, and he and Birch not on the same page. Birch may have been well served to find Derek Selby instead around that 50-yard line.
Yeah, I think a byproduct of a lot of heat in the kitchen there and him having to just get rid of that one, as he had a couple Tigers bearing down on him. You can see as he drops back here, by the time he gets rid of that one, takes a hit there at the end of the play by Amp Bruton.
QB draw, Birch into Tigers territory, still on his feet, inside of the 35, and he will be wrestled down at around the 33-yard line.
Wow, what a savvy run there by Birch, able to pull that one down. And talk about another guy whose athleticism has just been on display thus far this season. He looks so good in open space with the ball in his hands. Just such an emergence in his game, being able to run that way. That flipped the field for the offense.
Low snap, but Birch corrals it. Spins out of pressure.
Got Selby.
Tossing near side, it is caught. And Selby is shouldered to the sideline, and a flag against the Tigers is going to cost them some extra yardage, as Dominique Cochran will be the guilty party after the tackle is made on Selby.
If you're Cochran, what are you doing, man? You know you're going to get flagged for that. Obvious showboating, and there's the disrespect. They don't. Officials don't like it. The step over there. That's a common sign of disrespect. And trudging over and getting together with the cheerleading squad for a minute. You got to know better. Get yourself back in the huddle. You can celebrate with your teammates in the huddle after a big hit. There's nothing wrong with that. But once you start showboating and trying to throw it into someone's face, they're going to get you for that.
And the taunting is really the worst part of the whole thing. And obviously unsportsmanlike conduct against Dominique Cochran. And that ball will be moved half the distance to the goal line. Tigers fans don't like it, but from our vantage point, wearing a bit of the black and gold goggles to go along with it, it seems to be the right call.
I mean, objectively, there's really nothing you can do to argue that call. For the Gators, you got to execute now. You've gotten yourself a gift-wrapped opportunity. It looks like down on the far side of the field. Is that Jenkins that's down?
It is, but he is apparently getting stretched out, hopefully. That is the case. As he's pounding the turf over there, being tended to by the Gateway athletic trainer over there on the far sideline.
And the cramps have to be frustrating because you're ready to get up there, keep competing, and you got to take a second, sort of reset. It's always frustrating when your body's not doing exactly what you want it to do. He's coming off a little bit more of a limp than you'd like to see.
Well, some of the issue is if you're not able to get the entire cramp out, sometimes you don't want to take the momentum away from your offense. If you can get off and try to get that stretched out when you get to the sideline, get a little bit of hydration and electrolytes into your body and get that cramp out of there so you can return to the lineup. I think that's more important than laying there getting stretched out, taking the wind out of the sail of your Gateway offense.
This is an offense we talked about that has no shortage of guys to go to if you've got any one person not available for a play. Maybe they find a way to get the ball into Kenny Lewis's hands. Perhaps another handoff here to Reynolds, who's been really making his hay down along the goal line. Trick play.
Yep, handoff. Terrence Cole, and he'll take it down to around the 2-yard line. Terrence Cole, who stands at 5 feet 6 inches tall. I saw him come into the lineup. I saw him line up as a wing to the right-hand side. Birch takes the snap, hands it off to Cole, who runs to the left-hand side and nearly into the end zone, but he's strung out at the 2.
And for Cole, who's a sophomore, the amount of trust they have in a game like this late in the game to make a play like that, that's awesome.
Handoff, Reynolds, hit, trying to get his way to the goal line, but cannot get inside of the 2. And that brings up 2nd and goal at the 2.
Well, they've had some luck. Reynolds with 2 short touchdown runs, but that time McKeesport was ready for it, loaded the box up and laid the boom before Reynolds could even really get back to the line of scrimmage.
Lots of time on the play clock as Birch gets the play. Option left. Pitch. Caught by Reynolds. He gathers it and somehow races his way inside of the 2 to the 1-yard line. And he made chicken salad out of you-know-what there.
Boy, I don't know that I like that play call at all. And maybe that's a little flashback to what we saw against Mount Lebanon in week 0, where one of those plays got batted down and returned 85 yards for a touchdown. The Gators are going to go quick here. There's going to be a flag, though.
Looks like McKeesport got the timeout in.
Yep.
And that's exactly what happened. As McKeesport, their defensive coordinator, raced down, got the timeout in to allow them to talk strategy here on this 4th down and goal from the 1.
Yeah, smart timeout there for McKeesport. Take the time, think this over, up 10, try to get yourself in the best position to make a big-time play here. For the Gators, you got to come away with points here. With how little time there is left. Then you get yourself a stop and try to get yourself into field goal range, get that go-ahead touchdown. And even a 10-point game here, this has built up to quite the excitement here late in this one. The Gators got that all-important stop and have been able to translate it into an impressive drive here that just got to be able to punctuate.
Stephen Jenkins continues to stretch himself out with the Gators athletic trainer at around the 45-yard line while his offensive teammates talk strategy here and his opponents on the other side talk defensive strategy on a pivotal 4th and goal for the Gateway Gators.
Yeah, in a lot of ways it feels like this is the ball game. The Gators, granted, I mean, if you do turn it over here, McKeesport's got a long way to go. You got a chance if you can try to get him in the backfield, but Gators have not had great luck stopping McKeesport in the backfield thus far tonight. They fall forward a whole heck of a lot more often than not. Either way, this is an incredibly exciting finish here.
So the Gators go to the shotgun here on 4th and goal at the 1. And now we're going to have an official's timeout. And they are going to push the ball back the 6 inches that Roberson Louis June moved it forward when he picked it up to snap it. So again, shotgun, 4th and goal. The play clock chopped in, and here we go. Toss, near side, batted away. Fantastic defensive play there by Anthony Cromartie.
Read it all the way, stayed right on the receiver and just got that right hand up. Tried to get them to bite on the play action there, thinking they'd hand it to Reynolds, but honestly, if you're going to be in the shotgun, you're not thinking they're going to run it anyway. Now it really all comes down to the Gators can pin their ears back here, try to get a safety or a turnover or force something.
Well, it's not like we haven't seen McKeesport with their backs against the wall and turned it into a very protracted touchdown drive. And that protracted touchdown drive that we're talking about, Vince, started with what could have been S.J. Moorfield's 2nd touchdown of the game, and what on our replay showed a clear fumble by the Tigers and a clear 2-yard return for a touchdown by S.J. Moorfield, but instead, play after play after play by the Tigers, and they were able to tie that football game up at 14 on that drive. They took the lead 17-14 in a 2nd quarter field goal. The Gators not able to get a field goal of their own as the quarter expired, and it has been a back and forth affair here in the 2nd half, where the Tigers have constantly been able to keep the Gators at arm length.
Well, both teams have played incredibly well offensively. They've both moved the ball at will. The big thing is the Gators have just made a few more mistakes along the way as opposed to the Tigers. They've turned the ball over a few more times. They've had drives stall out that the Tigers have been able to sustain with a consistent rushing attack. And now a Gators team with a depleted defensive front has got to find a way to pin their ears back and get a stop here. Try and get this ball back quickly or to force a turnover, a safety. Give yourself some sort of momentum after that 4th down there. The Gators did not convert.
Hard count by the Tigers draws the Gators off sides, and the Gators allow the Tigers to get out of the shadow of their own end zone by breaching that neutral zone.
That's absolutely killer. Those are the mistakes you just can't make. You got to know they're going to try to go hard count there to try and get themselves, as you said, outside of inside their own 1-yard line. And now they got room to work with. That's just inexcusable on that one.
Vince, when we look back to the Gators' first 3 losses of the season, how many times did we talk about turnovers by the Gators, whether it be on downs or actually turning the football over inside of their opponent's red zone? Well, it's happened twice tonight, twice taking points away, potential points away from the Gators. And, you know, 2 drives without points and a 2-score game for the McKeesport Tigers right now.
Yeah, it's been the difference in this one. And certainly credit to the Tigers. I don't know that we've seen a defense flock to the ball or hit the Gators as hard as McKeesport has tonight. This is an incredibly physical football team. Well, Gators, that 5 yards also makes it so it's an easier first down to pick up for McKeesport, let alone being outside of their own end zone.
Hand off to Spell. He'll drive the pile and get the McKeesport first down. The Tigers are out of timeouts, not that they're going to need them, because they want a kill clock at this point with a 10-point advantage.
And the Gators still have a couple in the back pocket. They had to burn one to avoid having too many men on the field defensively early in that third quarter. You wonder when they decide to use those. 2-score game and this clock continuing to run, and McKeesport wisely not rushing to the line until there's well under 10 seconds left here in the play clock.
Hand off again to Spell. Looks like the ball came loose. Yeah, Spell was standing there. The ball was down on the turf. And who's got it? I think it was Noodles who had the football down at the bottom of the pile.
Ramen Payne. I told you, Spell carries that ball a little loose, and Payne coming up a little bit limp after that one. He earned that fumble recovery. Take a look at, came out all of a sudden with 3:48, and the Gators setting up shop with a fresh set of downs at the 15-yard line. This one becomes interesting again, Adam.
Yeah, it does. I mean, we're back in the same circumstance we were just a couple of minutes ago. The Gators having the ball inside of their opponent's red zone.
You really do have to wonder if Spell is starting to feel the fatigue, and it's no knock on him. He has been excellent tonight. Full credit to that young man, but they have asked him to do a lot.
Low snap, but it's corralled by Birch. Birch pressured late, but finds Kenny Lewis on the crossing pattern, and Lewis takes it inside of the 5 to around the 2-yard line. They'll mark it at the 3, actually, and that is enough for a Gators first down, first and goal for Gateway.
And he got out of bounds, which with under 4 minutes left, you need all that time you can get with 2 timeouts. You get a score here, all of a sudden you're trying to get that stop, and all you need is to get into field goal range.
Handoff. Reynolds spinning. Lost the football. And McKeesport recovers it.
And we talked about the Gators taking care of the ball through much of this season, and tonight it's just credit to McKeesport. They have generated these turnovers, but you just can't have that late in this game, and that feels like a dagger at this point.
Yeah, it does. I mean, especially when you get that second opportunity after McKeesport gives you the football back inside of the red zone. You're able to produce a first down on the first play. Kenny Lewis stops the clock going out of bounds. You've got yourselves first and goal at the 3 and another turnover in the opponent's red zone.
That's super deflating. Hard to sum it up any other way than that. You get a second lease on life, only to give it right back.
Quarterback this time going to keep it, and Tarker drives his way now towards the 10. They'll mark him down at the 9. Bringing up second down and 6.
Second down.
Gators have started to turn this thing around defensively in this second half. Credit to this unit. They've been gashed throughout a good bit of the evening, but late in this game, giving that offense opportunities, generating a turnover, slowing this McKeesport rush attack even ever so slightly down.
Forced the Tigers to punt, which we didn't see a whole lot of throughout the evening. As again, the Tigers go to the ground. This time it's Boyd, the ball carrier, brought down a yard shy of the line to gain, maybe less than a yard shy. And a timeout taken by the Gateway Gators here on this 3rd and about a yard. Again, looking forward here on GatewayGatorProductions.com. We've got boys soccer in our final Gateway game of the week for the fall sports season on Tuesday night. And we've got football at Norwin next Friday, road game. And we will return to Pete Annamarino Stadium for the regular season finale against the Central Catholic Vikings before the WPIAL football playoffs begin on Friday, November 3rd.
I'm excited to see that Central Catholic team in person, regardless if that's not a high-energy game or not. I think it'll be, that's a team that's gotten all the hype all season long, was for a while billed as potentially the best team top to bottom in the state of Pennsylvania. Certainly suffered that hiccup last week against Pine Richland. So Gators will get a chance to be the last team that separates them from the playoffs.
Tarker under center, handoff. I think that was Stu Vance, the ball carrier that time, as the fullback. I know it's Keith Spell.
That's the first down.
At what point, if you're the McKeesport coaching staff, do you give Spell a spell? I mean, this young man has clearly been the bell cow for the McKeesport Tigers.
Well, you talk about that Central Catholic Pine Richland game last week, and there was some controversy and some discussion as the ball carrier for Pine Richland carried the ball 56 times in one game. And there are some people who felt that was almost borderline abuse to give a young man that many touches in a game. Spell certainly had a good bit tonight, not quite that many.
I mean, that's not something that was uncommon years ago. I remember many years ago there was a young man who played for Cannon McMillan, ended up playing linebacker at Penn State, and we were doing a Woodland Hills game against Cannon McMillan, and he had to have 40 carries that night. And that was basically week in and week out the way Guy Montecalvo used that running back. And fortunately, he didn't have to tote the rock when he got to Penn State and got to play linebacker, and he got to dish out the punishment instead of absorbing so much of it. As here goes the McKeesport Tigers off to the races. Still on his feet is Boyd. Finally met by Kenny Lewis, but still dragging he and Phillips all the way to the 21-yard line.
That was an impressive run, a combination of both speed and strength. You see that breakaway speed to get into the secondary. He realizes he might get caught. I'm not so sure that he would get caught if he just keeps the burners on, but decides to cut it back. Then from there, Kenny Lewis is no slouch. He's a physical corner, and from there, he's able to drag him and Jair Phillips for a good 5 to 10 yards.
And right now, the thought process, if you're Matt Miller, is take a knee here. And I think that's definitely the way to go, because things can really go awry if you run another offensive play in this circumstance. You pick up a first down, you get a touchdown, and tempers really start to flip. But if you're in this circumstance, you take the knee, you're happy to get the victory and defeat the Gateway Gators.
Yeah, I mean, game's in hand. They can't stop the clock. It's a sign of respect. Again, a game that, for bragging rights and crosstown rivalry, sure, super important, but the scheme of playoffs and conference standings doesn't have quite the same implications, so you call off the dogs and you live to fight another day.
And if you're the McKeesport Tigers, certainly it's a big win. If you're the Gateway Gators, it's a loss, but it's also not a huge loss, because in the scheme of things, you've already won your conference. You've already clinched the #1 seed out of your conference. So next week, you're able to have an opportunity to win the conference championship outright. But there's a lot of things that you've got to be disappointed with as well if you're the Gateway Gators, especially with the way they turned the ball over 3 times inside of their opponent's red zone.
Yeah, they've done a good job all season of avoiding the turnover bug, and tonight it really bit them and bit them hard. And it really took the air out of the game with 3.5 minutes left. You get a second lease on life. You turn it back over. McKeesport gave you some opportunities to wiggle back into this game, but then you gave it right back, which is going to leave a sour taste in the Gators' mouth. They're going to have to sort of cleanse out and get ready for a Norwin team next week that you will be favored against. But if we've seen anything out of the Norwin Knights this season, is that they play a full 48 minutes and they will not quit. Had a huge comeback win against Blum, very nearly came back against Woodland Hills and a few others throughout the season. That's a team that doesn't quit. They're going to have some fight in them, and they're going to go down swinging.
Well, the Gateway Gators certainly showed a lot of flair in the passing game today. We saw Brad Birch find Kenny Lewis. He was finding Jenkins all night long. They look really, really good throwing the football today. The defense shown at moments, but obviously shown that they are susceptible to the run.
Yeah, and they've had some issues this season. Kyle Dupill from Franklin Regional was able to put up a decent amount of yards. Nick Odom from Plum. Tassel Whipple last week for Penn Trafford. They were able to come back around after letting up over 100-some yards in the first quarter and a 70-some yard touchdown completion to Whipple in the first quarter. They were able to clamp down just 39 yards on 17 carries for Whipple in the second half of that game. But they have had some susceptibility to the run throughout the season thus far. And I really look at Craig Schultz, who did not leave the table and does not look like he's going to be in a position to return next week. That's something the Gators are really, really going to have to grapple with moving forward.
And the Gators are starting to be reasonably depleted on both sides of the football, but especially defensively. When we take a look at some of the players that Gateway has lost over the past couple of weeks, we're starting to see a lot of young players having to play on the defensive side of the football, and then some other players having to play a lot more both ways than they are used to.
And to their credit, they've played quite well. And the Gators, coming into this game, had that 4-game win streak, but, they played a really, really tough opponent tonight in McKeesport. They took their lumps. They came out mostly healthy, but that loss of Schultz is going to loom large over this defense moving forward.
Big plays were a part of the story early on, but we also saw an incredible amount of protracted drives by both of these teams. Unfortunately for the Gateway Gators, some of their protracted drives ended with turnovers inside of their opponents' red zones.
Yeah, a few bounces in this game goes a different way, and the Gators will find solace in that. Hopefully, that if you hold on to the ball, that you had multiple turnovers in the red zone, right? The Reynolds fumble at the end, Birch's fumble early in the game inside the 5-yard line. That's your difference in the game right there. Those 10 points. That's likely 2 touchdowns. That puts you on the other side of this contest.
And don't forget about the turnover on downs prior to what ended up leading to the Jaquan Reynolds turnover, because McKeesport turned it right back over to Gateway at around the 15, and one play later they had it 1st and goal and ended up turning the football over. Well, that'll do it for our coverage tonight as the Gateway Gators fall by 10 to the McKeesport Tigers, 38-28. Next week, they will wrap up their conference play on the road against the Norwin Knights, and we will have it for you right here on GatewayGatorProductions.com. For our entire crew and my broadcast partner, Vince Russo, I'm Adam Gusky. Thank you for joining us here at Pete Anna Marino Stadium.